Chapter 581. After leaving Wei Ji's house, Loopy Toad had been thinking about the basic dog skills it had used in the fight earlier. Loopy Toad didn't feel that there was anything wrong with cultivating this fist technique. It could even be said that cultivating this fist technique had opened up many of its originally blocked meridians, and the compatibility between its soul and body had risen to a whole new level. However, Wei Ji's words still made Loopy Toad feel a little uneasy. This was because Wei Ji's instincts had always been very accurate, especially when it came to spirit beasts. The main point was that Loopy Toad was a demon beast to begin with. Although it was cultivating according to a spirit beast technique, what if something really went wrong? What should it do? Little Master Ling had personally improved the Demon King Heart Sutra, so Loopy Toad felt very reassured. But the problem was that Little Silver had memorized this basic dog skills from Dog Saint's depository of Buddhist texts back then. Furthermore, Little Silver himself had said that he had condensed this spirit technique in his own way. It was more refined than the original version, but for some reason, Loopy Toad felt that it wasn't reliable. On the way home, Loopy Toad couldn't help sending Little Silver a message. Was the basic dog skills you gave me last time complete? Little Silver's face was full of black question marks when he saw the message. It was complete. Loopy Toad, no sequelae? Little Silver, it would have been fine if the aftereffects hadn't been mentioned, but at the mention of them, Little Silver immediately recalled that Dog Saint had in fact written a note on the title page of the manual about cultivating the basic dog skills. But at the time, this note was only for the dog clan, so Little Silver hadn't kept it in mind. He only remembered that if you didn't follow the note when cultivating the technique, it could lead to some aftereffects. Seeing Little Silver's ellipsis reply, Loopy Toad was so shocked that its fur stood on end. There really is. Little Silver patted his face and replied a little aggrievedly, there really is. It's a note for the Hound Clan. Because it's only for the Hound Clan, I didn't really remember it. I only remembered it after I passed the cultivation method to you, but because it's been too long, I wanted to wait until I remembered it before telling you. Loopy Toad was stunned. F***K, you tricked me. You Demon Silver. Little Silver. Do you feel unwell now? Loopy Toad, no. Little Silver, then what are you panicking about? Maybe there aren't any sequelae at all, or maybe they aren't obvious, and it's not that serious. Loopy Toad was blank. What are the common sequelae? Whether it was humans, beasts, or any other living beings, they all had a natural fear of the unknown. Why was it popular to bring wolfberries out these days? Wasn't it to nip trouble in the bud? Little Silver pretended to think back, but didn't reply for several minutes. How would he know? Actually, it was mainly because he really didn't remember it carefully at that time. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to not remember it. For some reason, Little Silver had a bad feeling in his heart, and felt that he had indeed conned this Dog Boppy. Although Dog Boppy was usually very naughty, Little Silver still had an excellent overall impression of Loopy Toad. Full score of 5 stars, if not 5 stars, at least 4 stars. This was a very loyal dog. But given the current situation, Little Silver really didn't know how to comfort Dog 2. After a long time, Little Silver replied, the usual sequelae are nothing more than physical fatigue, backache, night sweats, and kidney deficiency. Loopy Toad, kidney deficiency? Little Silver, at worst, I'll just take some 6-flavor Dihuang pills. Loopy Toad, Little Silver, don't worry, it shouldn't be too serious. Don't we still have Master? With Master here, why are you panicking? If your kidneys really are weak, you can get Master to stroke them for you. Loopy Toad, Little Silver, I'm talking about stroking your fur, don't get the wrong idea. Loopy Toad, speaking up to this point, Little Silver couldn't help sighing. When can I be stroked by Master? I heard that Master stroked you many times, and his technique is very comfortable. I wonder how it compares with grenade throwing. Loopy Toad, you pervert. When it reached the front of the house, Loopy Toad did its best to put the sequelae to the back of its mind. It didn't want Little Master Ling to become suspicious if it looked uneasy, because it was about to do something big. Furthermore, Loopy Toad wanted to wrap things up as soon as possible and come back as a dog pretending that nothing had happened. The deadline for its prophetic dream was approaching, and it would set off for its clan at noon tonight. When it entered the house, Loopy Toad was actually a little nervous because it had been doing the whole thing behind Wang Ling's back, which made it feel a little guilty. Now, Loopy Toad just wanted to hurry up and end everything so that it could return to Little Master Ling's side as soon as possible. Taking a deep breath, Loopy Toad pushed open the door. It was 9 o'clock when it got home, and Mother Wang was already upstairs. It was time for her to put on her face mask, and Father Wang was in the study writing his draft under Lai Mingming's watchful eye. Wang Ling, on the other hand, was actually already lying in bed. This was beyond Loopy Toad's expectations. Why was Little Master Ling resting so early today? Was he too tired from today's sports meet? Little Master Ling was very different from other people when he took part in the sports meet. Other people were tired because of the exercise, but Little Master Ling was tired because he had to control his primordial chi during the exercise. This operation consumed a lot more energy than simple exercise. Thinking this, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that its explanation was simply flawless. Loopy Toad walked over to the bed and called out in a very low voice, "Woof?" Wang Ling, who was pretending to be asleep, there really wasn't any response. Loopy Toad was overjoyed. The heavens were really on its side. Wang Ling, who was pretending to be asleep, Loopy Toad went to the bathroom and closed the door. Recalling the method Wang Ling had used to locate Immortal Jinyuan's drought star, it started to operate Lord Ma. The toilet lid on Lord Ma opened on its own, and its ancient voice came out just like before, echoing faintly. "I am serving." But before it could finish, Loopy Toad retorted in a very low voice, "You're courting death." Little Master Ling is sleeping one. Lord Ma obediently shut its mouth. After Loopy Toad silently recited the coordinates, Lord Ma, just like before, gave off a burst of light that enveloped itself. Then, with a whoosh, Loopy Toad directly turned into a beam of light and disappeared on the spot. The moment Loopy Toad disappeared, Wang Ling pushed open the door and entered. "Did you send him away?" Wang Ling stared at Lord Ma and asked telepathically. Lord Ma, "Yes, Lord Supreme Wang Ling. Did you add the buff?" Wang Ling asked again. Lord Ma, "Yes, Lord Supreme Wang Ling." This was the power that Wang Ling had stored in Lord Ma's body. As long as Loopy Toad activated Lord Ma, Wang Ling's golden light shield would directly cover Dog 2. After confirming this, Wang Ling felt a lot more at ease. With the golden light shield, Wang Ling felt that he didn't have to worry too much about Loopy Toad's safety. Besides, this Dog 2 was very astute. It also had Immortal Jinyuan's main Immortal seal on it. If something really happened... Chapter 582. The demon world in the Gate Between Worlds was divided into 3 zones and 108 territories, divided according to strength into 96 outer territories, 8 middle territories, and 4 inner territories. According to overall strength, the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan was situated in one of the 4 inner territories. The disputes between the 4 inner territories were far more complicated than those between the middle and outer territories. At the same time, the 4 great Yao gods of the 4 inner regions were also the strongest Yao gods. The Scorpion King of the East, the Ox Sovereign of the West, the Ghost Emperor of the South, and the Turtle Devil of the North were known as the 4 illusionary gods of the war. The Sky-Swallowing Toad clan lived in the territory of Scorpion King of the East, and the conflict this time revolved around Scorpion King of the East and the other 3 demon gods of the other territories. On Dragon Tooth Mountain, an elder of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan whose hair and beard were already grizzled stood at the mouth of a cliff and gazed deeply at the border in the distance. This elder was the current acting leader of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan, Elder Wenhe. Dragon Tooth Mountain was the border crossing between the eastern and western territories. There was a border embassy there, which had originally been used to mediate conflicts between the various territories. However, in this elder's eyes, the embassy's function was completely non-existent. Elder Wen, everything is ready. Everyone in the clan, young and old, is ready to evacuate. At that moment, a ray of light fell, and a young man with an oily face landed behind Elder Wen. Elder Wen nodded and looked up at the sky. "If I sacrifice myself to ensure the safety of my clan, it will all be worth it." Speaking up to this point, Elder Wen turned to look at the young man behind him. After I die, everything in the clan will be handed over to you. You'll have to work harder. No. I'm going with grandfather. The young man raised his head. The 3 demon gods of the other territories' proposal to negotiate this time might be a turning point, grandfather. A turning point? It can't be a turning point. This is just the 3 demon gods' excuse. I can't watch my grandson throw away his life. Elder Wen sighed. In the end, you're still too young to understand the situation. No matter how we prove our innocence, it's no use when the other 3 territories forcefully accuse us like this. Just who did our clan offend? Wen Yu clenched her fists tightly, looking very angry. Our sky-swallowing toad clan has always scrupulously abided by our duties since the founding of the clan. Several years ago, the 10th generation leader was pushed by the demon kings to charge and break through enemy lines, and died a violent death. What right do the demon gods of the other 3 territories have to taint our innocence? Are you trying to tarnish my race by hiding a magical artifact of mass destruction for Scorpion King? In fact, no matter what one does, this kind of malicious act of tarnishing someone's reputation out of thin air would end up with nothing more than a sieve. You're still young and have a long way to go, but I'm already old. The sacrifice of my clan is merely a chess piece. This time, the other 3 territories sent people over to negotiate. They said that they want to thoroughly investigate whether our race has that weapon of mass destruction. If it is proven that we do not have it, the 3 territories will cancel the war against the Eastern Territory. Elder Wen pinched his beard, and his eyes seemed to have seen through everything. But it's impossible to cancel the war from the beginning to the end. These 3 territories are already prepared to join forces to suppress our Eastern Territory. There's no way Scorpion King will allow the other 3 territories to enter our Eastern Territory to conduct a search during this negotiation. At this point, the young man already completely understood. Scorpion King was stuck between a rock and a hard place. The existence of a magic artifact of mass destruction in the Eastern Territory was a nonsensical rumor to begin with, but the demon gods of the other 3 territories were still unrelenting in their determination to conduct a search, and had repeatedly joined forces to denounce and criticize it. They declared to the other territories that they would never let this matter rest, and unless the Eastern Territory was allowed to conduct a search, they would join forces to retaliate. What kind of shameless hoodlum behavior was this? If Scorpion King shows weakness, this will only make the other territories doubt the overall strength of our Eastern Territory. Right now, the 8 territories of the Central Territory are coveting the position of the 4 inner territories. Once Scorpion King shows weakness, it will only temporarily stop the wound. Elder Wen had seen through this matter from the very beginning. At that time, the 8 regions of the Central Region will definitely use this matter to make a big fuss. They'll kick our Eastern Region out of the 4 regions and fight for the position of the new Eastern Region. The young man was silent. The war between the demon territories had always brought only pain and suffering. The ones who really suffered were the innocent demon beasts in the process. Most demon beasts enjoyed a peaceful life, but the competition between the demon territories was such a cruel thing. Scorpion King of the Eastern Territory had always been a strong advocate. This time, the other 3 territories had joined forces to fight against the Eastern Territory, which in fact had something to do with Scorpion King's own character, but this was not a reason to frame others or create something out of nothing. Wen Yu was silent as he quietly wiped away his tears. He did not cry out, but the sound of him wiping away his tears was very clear, and even sounded a little harsh in Elder Wen's ears. He did not know if he would be able to return after leaving this time. Wen Yu was still young, but he was the best candidate among the younger generation to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the clan. Wen Yu, you don't have to be too sad. Grandpa has lived to this age and it's already enough. Elder Wen did not look back, his gaze fixed in the direction of the border from beginning to end. The young man lowered his eyes, feeling incomparably sad. Grandpa, is there really no other way? Looking at the current situation, there really isn't. Elder Wen shook his head. I've already held a prayer meeting. Unless we can awaken Great Ancestor Jiang, there's really little hope for this. Not too long ago, a shining demon god had appeared in the sky-swallowing toad clan, and that was great ancestor Jiang, whose Taoist name was Venerable Demon Jianglu. But speaking up to this point, Elder One suddenly said, "In fact, things may not be as bad as we think. Not long ago, I also had a prophetic dream. In the dream, under the illumination of a green light, our clan moved towards prosperity and prosperity. But so far, I still don't know what that green light represents. However, these comforting words didn't improve when used mood. The Toad clan's prophetic dream, although it was a dream that could come true, there was also an element of probability to the occurrence of a dream. Moreover, when you had never heard his grandfather mention anything about the prophetic dream before, so he treated it as comforting words. But in fact, Elder One had indeed dreamed of it. At that moment, grandfather and grandson stood at the mouth of Dragon Tooth Mountain's cliff. A cool breeze blew through Elder One's navy blue Taoist robe. It was almost time. Elder One was ready to leave, and it wasn't until the moment before he turned around to look at his grandson. "When you raise your head." A man-toad, a man of character. The young man did his best to restrain his emotions and held his head high. "We are a clan that has been illuminated by the demon god's glory. Even if we are lonely now, you must remember, for the sake of our ancestors. For the sake of the clan, you can't lower your head at any time." Elder One stared in the direction of the peace consulate and gritted his teeth. "If I don't come back this time, I won't come back." Chapter 583. When Elder One rushed to the peace consulate, he could already feel the smell of gunpowder. The atmosphere in the peace consulate wasn't peaceful at all. Instead, it was a little tense. Although he had long expected that this kind of negotiation would have no results, Elder One still sighed in his heart and slowly walked in. In the peace consulate, the envoys from the southern, western, and northern territories had been waiting for a long time. The 3 envoys sent this time were direct ambassadors of the demon gods of the south, north, and west. Taoist horse face under venerable ox of the west, Taoist witch demon under ghost emperor of the south, and Taoist bronze turtle under turtle devil of the north. This time, the 3 territories colluded to exclude the East Territory, which was something that even Scorpion King did not expect, and this negotiation could be said to be insincere. If they really wanted to resolve this matter peacefully, they shouldn't have just sent emissaries to negotiate. At the very least, the 3 territories should have sent a demon god as a representative. However, the ones sitting here were merely the emissaries of the 3 territories. In the conference hall of the peace consulate, there was a round table. The southern, western, and northern emissaries sat around the round table with their fingers crossed and their heads in deep thought. Elder One was silent and did not say anything. He found a place to sit down. After a minute or two of silence, Taoist Horseface said, "The envoys of our 3 territories have come to the consulate today for peace talks. Why didn't Scorpion King of the East personally receive us?" Elder One silently rolled his eyes in his heart. These were questions that he already knew the answer to. The 3 of them already knew that the Eastern region demon god Scorpion Emperor would not appear, so they purposely made things difficult for him. "Scorpion King is busy playing ranked at home today. I'm afraid he won't have time to come over." Elder One cupped his fists. The envoys from the 3 territories. Elder One casually pulled out a seat and sat down. His face showed a fearless expression, completely ready to die bravely. Taoist Horseface was still staring at him relentlessly. "Who allowed you to sit down?" As a result, Elder One did not listen to him at all and even crossed his legs. Since he was going to die today, what was there to be afraid of? Taoist Horseface's face darkened. "Are you not giving me face? We are all emissaries, and the peace consulate was established in the spirit of fair negotiations. But whether it's fair or not, don't the 3 of you know?" Elder One was not afraid at all. He simply said this directly, "Today, I have come with the determination to die, so there is nothing to be afraid of." "Is this the Scorpion King's intention?" Taoist Witch Demon smiled. "Do you know that you are fighting against 3 territories? Your puny sky-swallowing toad clan dares to stir up a conflict in the demon region. Even if any descendants of your clan survive in the future, they'll be nothing more than street rats wherever they go. Ever since the rumor that our clan hid a magic weapon of mass destruction for King Scorpion, all kinds of rumors have been spreading in the southern, western, and northern regions. When a lie is spread 1,000 times, it will become true even if it is false. This matter was originally made up, and everyone in the eastern domain knows about it. If the 3 envoys represent the 3 domains and insist on putting the blame on me, then I can't afford to bear the blame of the 3 domains. Elderwin waved his hand. Taoist Horseface's face darkened and his voice was incomparably gloomy. Since you're already prepared to die, we won't say anything more. If you have the guts, try walking out of this consulate. What? You don't dare make a move on me in this consulate? Elderwin smiled lightly. He was well aware that the peace consulate had been set up under Demon Saint's orders, and its original purpose was to mediate the conflict between the demon regions. Rumor had it that Demon Saint had set up a restriction in the peace consulate, and anyone who dared make a move in the consulate would immediately be punished by Demon Saint's restriction. This rumor had always existed, but no one had ever dared to put it into practice. Thus, Elderwin felt that he could bet that these 3 people absolutely wouldn't dare make a move on him, at least in the peace consulate. In fact, Elderwin's guess was indeed proven. Because they were overly fearful of Demon Saint's restriction, the faces of Taoist Horseface, Taoist Witch Demon, and Taoist Bronze Turtle from the southern, western, and northern regions instantly darkened. Taoist Horseface, you clearly know that Demon Saint's restriction is in this consulate. How could we make a move so easily? Elderwin couldn't help laughing. I clearly know that I'll be throwing my life away if I go out, so why should I? Taoist Horseface, Taoist Witch Demon, and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Just looking at the expressions of these 3 people, Elderwin's heart was already completely at ease. Although it was just a rumor that Demon Saint's restriction was in the peace consulate, this rumor had already spread a long time ago. However, no one had ever died under this restriction because no one dared make a move. They were afraid that Demon Saint's restriction would really activate. Thus, Elderwin wasn't in the mood to verify whether this restriction really existed. He had just wanted to take a gamble from the start. Now that he had confirmed that these 3 people wouldn't dare make a move on him, Elderwin was simply overjoyed. He stared at Taoist Horseface. Hit me. Then he straightaway did a standing long jump in front of Taoist Horseface. You can't do it. The envoys from the 3 territories, Elderwin, curse at me. You can't open your mouth. The envoys from the 3 territories. The corner of Taoist Horseface's mouth twitched. After thinking for a long time, he decided to take a step back in order to advance. Our 3 territories all have manners. It's impossible for us to make a move on the envoys. Since Scorpion King isn't here today, why don't we discuss this another day when he's free? According to their original plan, they hadn't planned to kill Elderwin to begin with, but to detain and arrest him in the name of privately possessing a magic weapon of mass destruction. But even if they were going to arrest him, they would still have to resort to witchcraft. The problem was, who would dare make a move in the peace consulate? I've already seen through the 3 territories' ability to frame others. Elderwin didn't believe their nonsense at all. From the moment he entered the room, their eyes had already said it all. Taoist Horseface couldn't help asking, then what do you want to do? Don't tell me you still want to live here? Elderwin snapped his fingers. You're right. The envoys from the 3 territories. Elderwin sat down cross-legged and took out a brocade pouch from which he then took out his pots, bowls, ladles, and basins. There was also a glass bottle, and this glass bottle was filled with insect eggs. Elderwin, this bottle contains the large meat flies produced by my clan. There are 100,000 male eggs and 100,000 female eggs, and some of them are already about to hatch. This way, we won't have to worry about food supplies. Furthermore, I'm also old and can't eat much. As long as I have this bottle, I can live here until I die of old age. The envoys from the 3 territories, holding the glass bottle, Elderwin smiled. Who do you think can survive better than my clan in the 3 territories? Chapter 584. In the peace consulate, Elderwin's expression was unperturbed. Since he was sure that these 3 people wouldn't dare do anything to him, it was very stable, It didn't matter how naughty he was next. At that moment, Taoist Horseface hated himself to death with regret. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have arranged to meet in the peace consulate. It would have been better to find a special place for negotiations. At that moment, the envoys from the 3 territories looked at each other in dismay, their hearts racing as they questioned whether this so-called demon saint restriction really existed. Since ancient times, no one had dared to take this step, so there was no way to confirm the authenticity of demon saint's restriction. But the problem was that even if they weren't sure, they wouldn't dare cross this line. Taoist Horseface couldn't take it anymore. Don't go too far. The peace consulate is for us to negotiate, but you actually dare to live here as your own home? You're simply shameless. Elderwin was stunned. From the moment he had entered the room, the 3 of them had been conspiring against him, attempting to do something indescribable like binding and dripping wax to a 1,000-year-old toad which was full of hope and yearning for a better tomorrow in broad daylight. Now, they were actually accusing him of being shameless. This was a move that shocked the heavens and made the gods weep. Elderwin, if you can't wait, you can leave first. In any case, I'll be staying in the peace consulate. According to the convention, there's nothing wrong with this. The peace consulate is meant to uphold justice, mediate conflicts, and provide shelter for demons in trouble. The envoys from the 3 territories were speechless. But at that moment, Taoist Bronze Turtle suddenly thought of something. He stared at Elderwin with a sinister smile. Did you only bring the eggs? There's no incubation potion, right? If you want to hatch them, you'll need a special incubation demon potion. Miscalculation. Elderwin patted his head. The incubation demon potion was a very important part of incubating large flesh flies. After all, he was getting on in years. There were times when things really weren't so comprehensive. Taoist Horseface laughed. Are you stupid? Without the incubation potion, these eggs are useless to you. We can just wait here with you. If there were these insect eggs, Elderwin's endurance could increase infinitely. The big meat flies hatch very quickly and only need the supply of demonic energy to grow. For the Toad clan, this was an important source of food. Not only could it replenish their own demonic energy, but it also had very rich nutrition. Elderwin brought so many insect eggs with him. If he could use his demonic aura here to help the big meat flies hatch and grow as a source of endurance, then in theory, it would be like a perpetual motion machine. It could cycle endlessly. Taoist Witch Demon couldn't help but laugh. Elderwin, you're really muddle-headed. You actually didn't bring something as important as the incubation demon water. Why don't you go back to the clan to get it? This was unvarnished ridicule. However, Elderwin's expression was calmer than the 3 had imagined. He knew all too well what it meant once he got out. These 3 people couldn't wait for him to walk out of the embassy and attack him. It's nothing. I really didn't bring any incubating demon water. But since the 3 envoys are willing to keep me company, then so be it. Elderwin waved his hand lightly, and then took out his phone the next second. I'll order takeout and have it delivered. The envoys of the 3 territories, really, didn't he just forget something? It wasn't a big deal. Elsewhere, in Sprout Village, where the sky-swallowing toad clan had originally lived, Dog 2 successfully landed in a golden light that fell from the sky. Buttface looked at the faint golden light on his green fur and was stunned for a moment. Wasn't this little masterling's golden light shield? How could it have this effect on itself? Could it be that after using Lord Ma to teleport, the golden light shield would automatically strengthen itself? Loopy Toad was a little puzzled. It hadn't told Little Master Ling about coming to the demon world, and it felt that it had hidden it very well. But if this golden light shield had really been specially arranged by Little Master Ling, thinking this, Loopy Toad's heart couldn't help tightening, and it suddenly felt warm. Sometimes, Dog 2 couldn't help thinking that it was really too happy to recognize Wang Ling as its master, whatever. In this situation, Loopy Toad would just take it as a side effect of using Lord Ma's teleportation. Having the golden light shield was better than nothing. At its current realm, although it had the support of the power of Sword Dao, if it unleashed its full power, it would barely be below the itinerant immortal realm. It wouldn't be as strong as an itinerant immortal, but it was still a lot stronger than an ordinary demon king. Even so, the demon world was still dangerous, and Dog 2 felt very at ease with this golden light shield. Loopy Toad looked up in the direction of the sky-swallowing Toad Clan's Sprout Village, but at that moment, there wasn't a single toad in the entire village, not even half a shadow. Where did they all go? Loopy Toad was even more perplexed. But at that moment, Loopy Toad's spiritual senses shook as it suddenly sensed an aura approaching the back of its head. Loopy Toad easily tilted its head to avoid it, and saw a young man with an oily face standing behind it. So, when you... Loopy Toad was able to determine the young man's identity based on his aura alone. It hadn't expected that in the blink of an eye, the little toad that had been with Elderwin back then would actually have already cultivated to take human form and grow so big. Wen Yu frowned as he stared at the green-furred dog standing at the entrance to the village. That piercing aura just now had just been a probing attack. But this green-furred dog's reaction had still shaken Loopy Toad, because the other party had really dodged it too easily, as if it hadn't taken Loopy Toad's sneak attack seriously at all, and had already sensed Loopy Toad's aura earlier on. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that this green-furred dog didn't have the slightest trace of demon chi on it. What it exuded was clearly pure spirit chi. This was a spirit beast from outside the demon world. Who are you? Wen Yu's eyes suddenly became a little vigilant as he released his aura in an attempt to suppress it. However, Dog 2 just silently walked over to the young man, completely unafraid of the latter's aura. It just sighed in its heart. This little guy from back then actually had this kind of strength now. In some sense, Loopy Toad felt that Wen Yu was actually more talented than it had been back then, and it was actually a little gratified. Because Loopy Toad had the golden light shield to begin with, Wen Yu's aura didn't have the slightest effect at all. When Loopy Toad approached the young man step by step, Wen Yu's heart almost immediately went on alert. Something told him that this green-furred dog was very dangerous. However, Loopy Toad merely raised its head and stared at him, but it was this gaze that made Wen Yu dazed for a moment. Where are the others in the village? The moment Loopy Toad opened its mouth, Wen Yu was immediately stupefied. Because this was the voice of the 10th generation leader. Wen Yu's eyes almost immediately reddened. I'm not dead yet, child. Chapter 585. Wen Yu stared at the scene in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't believe it at all. The voice of the 10th generation emperor was actually reverberating in his ears. It was so real that it lingered in his ears and kept on echoing. Wen Yu had never expected, back then, the 10th generation leader who had been tricked by the demon kings and pushed out of the gate between worlds to charge and break through the enemy lines, and who had then died, would actually reappear in front of him like this. 10th generation, is that really you? The young man felt that his legs could no longer support him, and had already turned to jelly. Although the 10th generation leader's appearance and aura had completely changed, this voice, yes, it was the 10th generation leader without a doubt. In Wen Yu's childhood impression, the 10th generation leader's voice had always been dignified and peaceful, giving people a very peaceful feeling. Yes, my child, I'm back. I didn't die. Instead, I lived on in this way. When Loopy Toad was completely in front of the young man, he could no longer support himself as he knelt on the ground and started to cry bitterly. Although Loopy Toad didn't know what on earth had happened in the sky-swallowing Toad Clan's Sprout Village, from the perspective of its prophetic dream, Loopy Toad had already guessed that something big had definitely happened in the village. As the backbone of the younger generation, Wen Yu was clearly struggling to hold on. Thus, the moment he saw Loopy Toad, Wen Yu already couldn't suppress his emotions and started sobbing. Loopy Toad put its paw on the young man's shoulder. It's been hard on you when I wasn't around. It had actually been a very long time since Dog 2 had spoken in this kind of leadership tone ever since it had started following Little Masterling. For one thing, it wasn't used to it, and for another, life in the human cultivation city had made Dog 2 forget the days when it had been a king. But now that it had returned, in order to completely sever all this, and also to fulfill its final responsibility as a king, Dog 2 had already thought it through and decided to play the role of king. Of course, this would also be the last time, Loopy Toad quietly waited for the young man to rein in his emotions. After a few minutes or so, when it saw that when you had gradually calmed down, Loopy Toad opened its mouth slowly. After I disappeared, did a new king take office? No, no, when you wiped away his tears. Grandfather, he actually always believed that the 10th generation leader wasn't dead, and everyone has been waiting for him to come back. So it was like that? Loopy Toad lowered its head in contemplation. This was exactly what it had seen and deduced in its prophecy dream. Loopy Toad stretched out a paw and pressed it to Wen Yu's forehead. Don't move, relax. I want to know what on earth happened in the village. This was a simple memory extraction spell that required the cooperation of the person whose memory was being perceived. Loopy Toad knew that something big had happened in the village, but Wen Yu wouldn't be able to explain it in just a few words. Instead of that, it would be more convenient for Loopy Toad to directly search through the memories. After Loopy Toad's memories of it of two, it was turned of dog you of one of everything of what had of it of had was that. Of was all was, dog it's of one of the of his of. It was fortunate that it hadn't fully inherited the power of the Sword Tao. If it could fully absorb the power of the Sword Tao, even if it hadn't reached the level of a first-grade spirit beast, but Face felt that it would be able to fight a demon god. Now that Elder Wen was in danger and was probably being held captive in the Peace Consulate, Loopy Toad felt that it had to rush over immediately. Wen Yu, I'm going to save Elder Wen now. He is the hero who founded our clan, I will definitely protect him. 10th generation leader, what are you going to do? Whoever dares come over, I'll just hang them up and beat them up. Loopy Toad laughed, sounding very confident and ruthless. They were just 3 insignificant envoys, Dog 2 didn't care about them at all. Wen Yu, before this matter is resolved, please protect the rest of the clan, Loopy Toad said as it looked at the young man. Don't worry, 10th generation leader. The young man nodded. And Wen Yu, please keep my return a secret. Don't mention it to anyone, including your grandfather. Do you understand? Loopy Toad said. Wen Yu didn't understand. Why? I'm no longer a demon king. Loopy Toad turned around and looked at its village. It then stared at Wen Yu and said, my current Taoist name is Immortal too. Wen Yu. Elsewhere, in the Peace Consulate, the little demon from Demon Takeout very quickly delivered the incubation demon water according to Elder Wen's online order. When it arrived at the entrance of the Peace Consulate, the little demon was shocked. This place was too grand. As a little demon, it would have never been able to set foot here in its entire life. At the entrance of the consulate, the little demon asked weakly, is this Mr. Wen's delivery? Elder Wen was sitting in the consulate, and when he heard the little demon speak, he immediately replied happily, yes, I ordered it. Come in directly. The little demon's heart trembled as it carried the incubation demon water that Elder Wen had ordered. Holy shit! It actually had a chance to go in? This was the Peace Consulate. The little demon trembled as it entered, and in the next second, it was so scared that it almost peed its pants, because in the Peace Consulate, the envoys from the other 3 territories besides Elder Wen were staring at it with sinister expressions on their faces, as if they wanted to eat it up. The little demon couldn't help trembling all over. Mr. Wen, your delivery. Don't be nervous, there's Demon Saints restriction in the Peace Consulate. They might be a little crazy, but they won't do anything to you. Elder Wen smiled. The envoys from the other 3 territories, so that's how it is. Hearing that, the little demon heaved a huge sigh of relief, then glared at the envoys from the other 3 territories a little angrily. Look at that. Do you look like peace envoys with that expression? In any case, you're officials from the 3 territories of the demon world, and each of you is fiercer than the last. Be careful, or I'll file a complaint against you. The envoys from the other 3 territories. After saying that, the little demon snorted, slammed the door, and left. By then, the envoys from the other 3 territories had already been provoked to the max. Taoist Horseface was so angry that he was trembling all over. Don't go too far. If you're capable, let's go out and fight one-on-one. I swear on my demon status that Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle won't make a move during our duel. But just as Taoist Horseface finished speaking, an indescribable green light appeared outside the window of the peace consulate. Elder One? The envoys from the other 3 territories? What was going on? It was at that moment. All of a sudden, there was a deafening bang. A streak of spirit light directly broke through the window and entered the consulate. He directly slapped Taoist Horseface in the face so hard that his face became crooked and several of his teeth fell out. Everyone turned pale with shock as they stared at this scene in front of them, because it had come from a green-furred dog. Chapter 586. Dog 2's attack had been so fast that no one could react at all. From the appearance of that strange green light on the horizon to Dog 2's flying kick breaking through the window, the whole process had taken less than a second. Everyone in the peace consulate was startled by this scene, because no one had expected such an unforeseen turn of events at this time. Buttface's kick was very powerful. Because it was under the effect of his anger, even though he didn't use the power of the Way of the Sword in this flying kick, Buttface had already used 100% of his strength. In addition, there was the effect of force is reciprocal. Under such a fierce attack, the golden light around Buttface's body reflected the power of the fierce blowback several times, making this flying kick even more ferocious. Caught off guard, Taoist Horseface was directly confused by this kick, and he was completely muddle-headed. The peace consulate was built with special materials, but this green-furred dog that had come out of nowhere had actually been able to break through the window and kick Taoist Horseface in the face. Furthermore, it had even injured him so badly. This was enough to prove how powerful this dog was. This force directly sent Taoist Horseface flying like a scarecrow, and he directly smashed through several walls of the peace consulate before crashing into the last one. Taoist Horseface's figure appeared on the wall, and there were spiderweb-like cracks all around it. On the side, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle turned pale with fright and hurried over to check on Taoist Horseface's injuries, only to turn pale with fright. It had only been one kick, but Taoist Horseface had actually suffered internal injuries. Taoist Horseface spat out a mouthful of purple blood, and with the help of Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle, he stood up against the wall. His legs were trembling, not because he couldn't stand up from the heavy blow just now, but because the moment he had collided with Loopy Toad's leg, that overwhelming pressure had directly touched his soul, causing it to tremble uncontrollably. What on earth was this green-furred dog? It was really too terrifying. What on earth is going on? Taoist Horseface trembled as he got to his feet, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. That blow just now had been nothing more than a kick, but it had actually shaken his jade mansion. When Taoist Horseface composed himself and saw the green-furred dog in front of Elder One, he flew into a rage almost instantly. How dare you, demon dog? How can the peace consulate allow you to do as you please? The next moment, Taoist Horseface got into a stance and tried to burst forth with his demon energy, but he was stopped by Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle on the side. Lord Horseface, don't. The peace consulate has a demon sage restriction. It was a pity that Taoist Horseface was extremely furious at the moment and only wanted to get back at him. That bold demon dog's attack just now was full of power. But even so, it did not trigger the Demon Saint's restriction. This is enough to prove that the Demon Saint's restriction does not exist. This was just a pretense. We've all been fooled. After saying that, Taoist Horseface ignored their advice and directly broke free from Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle's arms. The next moment, he released his demon energy as he exerted his strength to the extreme. It was boundlessly terrifying as he combined several demon techniques at the same time with a formidable energy, and he unceremoniously stretched out his palm to slap Dog 2 and Elder One behind him. Be careful, this palm is very strong. Elder One turned pale with fright. He had no idea where this dog had come from, but there was something inexplicably familiar about it. So weak, however, Loopy Toad didn't care about this palm at all. Given that its golden light shield was still active, it even felt that it didn't need to do anything special to block it. It could completely block it with its golden light shield. It was just a mere territory emissary whose strength was at most at the level of a demon king, but little Masterling's golden light shield could completely withstand a blow from a venerated immortal. So when Taoist Horseface attacked, Loopy Toad had a very contemptuous expression on its face, because it was well aware that this palm would ultimately reap what it had sown, but Taoist Horseface was halfway toward him in less than half a breath's time. At that moment, the other two territory emissaries, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle, as well as Loopy Toad and Elder One, suddenly looked up at the sky. Taoist Horseface also stopped his attack as if he had realized something, and his expression changed drastically. Hum! An indescribably powerful aura spread from the direction of the holy pillar in the center of the demon world, and it was as if a pair of incorporeal eyes had opened in that moment in the highest heavens of the demon world. This aura was so powerful that Elder Wen and the other three territory emissaries present all fell to their knees at that moment. Only Dog 2, who was protected by the golden light shield, wasn't affected in the slightest. But even so, Loopy Toad could still sense the fierceness of this aura. It couldn't be wrong, this was Demon Saint's aura. Even demon gods could only kneel in front of Demon Saint, to say nothing of the emissaries here. In a split second, the three territory emissaries and Elder One were shaken down by this powerful force and felt how insignificant they were. They were like a swarm of ants in the ocean. Insignificant beyond words. This powerful pressure lasted for several seconds, and then Taoist Witch Demon, Taoist Bronze Turtle and Elder One felt their bodies loosen up, and they all got to their feet one after another. Demon Saint's aura was released from their bodies, but there was still one more person lying on the ground in the Peace Consulate. It was none other than Taoist Horseface, who had been the first to use his demon magic in the Peace Consulate. At that moment, Taoist Horseface was filled with regret. A Grand Territory's emissary, an existence even more noble than a demon king, was actually lying on the ground, trembling like a ghost. The fear of death caused snot and tears to gush out of Taoist Horseface's eyes. This was a horrifying and helpless truth, because the rumored restriction that Demon Saint had set up in the Peace Consulate actually existed. No one had ever dared to cross the line before, but in the long history of the demon world, Taoist Horseface had become the first to eat crabs. Loopy Toad looked up at the sky. Although this pressure from Demon Saint didn't affect it, it still felt Demon Saint's aura loosen on its body. This was a little unexpected for Dog 2. It never thought that Demon Saint would actually be so businesslike. So at that moment in the Peace Consulate, Taoist Horseface was the only one who was suffering. Like a squashed dead fish, he lay on the ground without the slightest bit of self-respect. The enormous pressure had already deformed his face and body, but Demon Saint's power of punishment continued to increase. Taoist Horseface let out a pained roar. "I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Why? This demon dog isn't affected by the restriction. Because I'm a spirit beast." Dog 2 gave Taoist Horseface a wise look. "Are you an idiot?" The three territory emissaries. Chapter 587. As soon as Loopy Toad said this, the envoys from the three territories, including Elder One on the side, were stupefied. Spirit beast. They had actually overlooked this point. It was clearly a dog with such a strange fur color, as if it had been poisoned, but it was actually a spirit beast? The envoys from the three territories found it a little hard to believe, but after Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle used their senses to sense it, they couldn't help being greatly shaken. This was because the purity of this dog's spirit energy was simply frighteningly high. In fact, a lot of soul formation cultivators had broken into the demon world over the years, and their strength was on par with that of a demon king, but the precision of their spirit energy wasn't as frightening as this dog's. What was even more frightening was that Loopy Toad was wrapped in a layer of protective golden light. Then the question was, where did this protective golden light come from? Was it the dog's own protective golden light? This was the power of a sage body. Where on earth did this dog come from? Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were scared, but they very quickly realized that this wasn't the crux of the problem. It was the demon god restriction that was about to fall. No one had ever seen what the demon god restriction looked like. Taoist Horseface had been able to speak earlier, but in these few seconds he couldn't even open his mouth, and his entire face was deformed. Although Demon Saint had withdrawn the pressure on everyone else and was only punishing those who had broken the rules, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle could still feel the powerful force of order in the air. Boundless spiritual pressure swept the area as if it wanted to sweep away everything. Demon Saint is really angry. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle couldn't help trembling. They couldn't help looking at Taoist Horseface on the ground, whose face was about to twist into a portrait of Picasso, and their hearts trembled with fear. They could actually see that Taoist Horseface was pleading for help, and there was despair in his eyes. "Lord Demon Saint, please calm down." Fellow Horseface didn't intentionally violate the peace consulate's rules. He doesn't deserve to die. Taoist Witch Demon's brain worked very quickly as he prayed in an attempt to plead for mercy from Demon Saint. "That's right, it's all this foreign dog's fault. Demon Saint, please be enlightened." Taoist Bronze Turtle chimed in. Immediately, Demon Saint's ethereal voice reverberated in the void. No one knew where it came from, but it lingered in their ears. "Those who disobey shall die." Taoist Witch Demon trembled. He endured the intense fear and continued to plead, "Is there any other way to replace punishment?" "Yes." The Demon Saint's voice sounded again from all directions. "You too, die for him." As soon as he said that, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle immediately took a step back and bowed to the void at the same time. "Lord Demon Saint, please execute Horseface immediately." Taoist Horseface. As soon as he said that, an invisible force of order directly fell. Sprawled on the ground, Taoist Horseface had already been completely deformed. His entire body contorted to the extreme, and in the end he directly died, turning into a pile of demon sand on the spot. Demon sand was a substance that could only be formed after a demon beast's corpse was cremated, and it was very similar to bone ash. Who could have imagined that in the face of Demon Saint's formidable restrictive power, a territory envoy whose strength was comparable to a demon king's wouldn't even have a corpse left behind, and directly turned into a pile of demon sand? Everyone in the peace consulate who saw this scene, including Loopy Toad, was incomparably horrified. Because no one had ever seen what a real Demon Saint's restriction looked like before. Now everyone knew what it was like. This was a power that couldn't be resisted at all. Whether it was Taoist Witch Demon or Taoist Bronze Turtle, neither of them had expected things to turn out this way. They didn't know whether to be shocked or rejoice. This Demon Saint's restriction was too powerful, but it hadn't fallen on them. If they had also disobeyed Demon Saint's will, they would definitely have ended up the same way. But what frightened them the most was Demon Saint's decisiveness and cold-bloodedness. This was the strength of the current demon world's absolute ruler, and no one's will could be refuted under such a powerful restriction, let alone territory envoys like them. Even a demon god might not be able to survive. Taoist Horseface had died too unjustly and too miserably. Loopy Toad gazed at the pile of demon sand on the ground and sighed. Actually, a demon territory civil servant like Taoist Horseface might not necessarily end up well even if he worked for a lifetime. Actually, dying like this wasn't too bad. At the very least, his name would remain in the history of the demon world. Perhaps in a month or two, Taoist Horseface's portrait would be hung in the history textbooks of the demon world. The contents of the textbooks. Taoist Horseface was the first in the history of the demon world to confirm the existence of Demon Saint's restriction in the peace consulate, and one of the great demon territory civil servants who put it into practice. Taoist Bronze Turtle, Taoist Witch Demon, how about we drop the matter today? Both of you should go back first, and take Taoist Horseface's demon sand with you. It'll be good to collect his corpse first before coming back. The demon sand is still warm now, it won't be good if it gets cold later. Elder Wen's kind words made Loopy Toad sweat inwardly. Elder Wen he was still as venomous and merciless as ever. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were very angry. Of course they couldn't let this matter drop. They had lost a general on their side. They had actually been very confident in their victory in a 3-on-1 situation earlier, but now there was a green-furred dog who had somehow colluded with Elder Wen. Plus, Taoist Horseface had been killed by Demon Saint's restriction, so the current situation was a lot more complicated. And the point was that they could still vaguely feel the pressure from Demon Saint. Maybe Demon Saint was watching them. Since the restriction did exist, it was impossible to make a move inside the peace consulate, but at that moment, Taoist Bronze Turtle suddenly thought of an idea. Perhaps they could use Demon Saint to get rid of this green-furred dog first. At this thought, he suddenly looked up at the sky and pleaded with Demon Saint, "Lord Demon Saint, are you still there?" Elder Wen He of the Eastern Territories' sky-swallowing toad clan is actually colluding with a spirit beast. We came here upholding justice and peace and don't want to do it ourselves. Lord Demon Saint, please get rid of this foreign spirit dog. The corners of Loopy Toad's and Elder Wen's lips twitched at the same time when they heard this. We came here upholding justice and peace. How could this guy have the face to say that? After Taoist Bronze Turtle said this, Demon Saint's voice rang out. Deal with your own private matters. About 2 minutes later, Demon Saint's voice rang out again, and it was concise and to the point. None of my business. Chapter 588. About 10 minutes earlier, in his bedroom, Wang Ling looked at the time. It had been almost half an hour since Loopy Toad had returned to the demon world, and he didn't know if Dog 2's journey had gone smoothly. Although Loopy Toad had already been protected by the Golden Light Shield, Wang Ling still felt a little uneasy. There were too many unknowns in the demon world. Especially after he had learned about Demon Saint in Old Antiques history class, he had had a bad feeling about this all along. Thinking this, Wang Ling directly went over to Lord Ma and hooked his finger to lift the toilet lid. Following Wang Ling's instructions telepathically, Lord Ma directly projected an image of Dog 2 in the demon world into the air. Wang Ling just happened to see Loopy Toad send Taoist Horseface flying in the forehead. Taoist Horseface was furious and prepared to fight back, but just as he was about to charge over, the expressions of everyone in the Peace Embassy changed as if they had seen something terrifying, and they all looked up at the sky. Wang Ling opened the water tank on Lord Ma's back and observed the changes in the water level inside. Lord Ma's function wasn't just for teleportation, it could also project images of the teleported person's surroundings after the teleportation, as well as sense the pressure in the vicinity of the person being teleported. The change in the water level in Lord Ma's water tank reflected the pressure in Dog 2's surroundings. When Wang Ling lifted the lid, he found that the water level in the water tank was about to reach a critical point. This had never happened before. To be able to exert such pressure, it was very likely that a true immortal had exerted it. Furthermore, Wang Ling judged that the source of this pressure wasn't ordinary, and it was very likely that this Taoist horse face had triggered some kind of restriction. As Wang Ling had expected, a few minutes later, he watched helplessly as Taoist Horseface was destroyed by the demon world's restriction and reduced to demon sand on the ground. There was no mistaking it. This was definitely the pressure from Demon Saint, and Wang Ling could also tell this from the way the people in the image were talking. After Taoist Horseface's death, the other 2 territory envoys had immediately requested Demon Saint to kill Dog 2. Wang Ling's expression changed slightly at once. Even if you wanted to beat a dog, you had to look at its master first. Search for the source of Demon Saint's restriction, Wang Ling said to Lord Ma telepathically. Yes. Lord Ma immediately agreed. It was too easy for Lord Ma to do this kind of thing. This was a kind of reverse tracking magic. Among all the monsters in the villa, only Lord Ma had this ability. Very quickly, Lord Ma locked onto Demon Saint's position. Through the image he sent, Wang Ling could see a pillar towering into the clouds like a sea-stabilizing divine needle. The entire pillar was engraved with strange patterns that could be called uncanny workmanship. This was probably the legendary Holy Pillar where Demon Saint resided. This was the center of the entire demon world. At the very top of the Holy Pillar, Wang Ling saw a blue-skinned fat man in an aqua-blue Taoist robe and holding a law enforcer's staff, looking down at them. His skin was glistening with fish scales. Wang Ling never thought that the legendary Demon Saint would actually really be a merman. After hearing Taoist Bronze Turtles and Taoist Witch Demon's repeated requests, Demon Saint pondered with the law enforcer's staff in his hand. This magic staff's origin wasn't simple. With one glance, Wang Ling could tell that it was a world-defying magic weapon that could control the entire demon world. Demon Saint's restriction, which had directly destroyed Taoist Horseface just now, had also been activated by this magic staff. Warn him, Wang Ling ordered Lord Ma telepathically. Right after Wang Ling said this, Lord Ma manipulated his power and actually directly formed a golden cloud in front of Demon Saint, who was still in deep thought. This was a golden cloud that had been spawned by an enormous amount of spirit power. On the holy pillar, Demon Saint was flabbergasted. From the demon domain below to the top of the holy pillar, there were 90,000 layers of barriers. Furthermore, the space above the holy pillar had been sealed. Forget space transmission, even telepathic messages couldn't reach here, and spells below grade 10 wouldn't work at all. But what was up with this golden cloud? Demon Saint was stupefied. He tried to wave his magic staff and launch a tentative attack on the golden cloud, but the golden cloud that Lord Ma had created immediately counterattacked, instantly paralyzing Demon Saint's hand with the law enforcer's staff, as if it had been electrocuted. Demon Saint immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He was now 100% sure that this golden cloud was at least a grade 11 spell. Fortunately, he had held back just now and hadn't used all his strength to drive it away, otherwise he would have really been on the verge of courting death. But what on earth was this golden cloud that had suddenly appeared? Demon Saint was stupefied. After several dozen seconds, a voice came from the golden cloud. It was Lord Ma's voice. Lord Ma was reading out Wang Ling's will. I, who serve the Supreme Sovereign, hereby exhort thee to cease thy hand and remain silent, or the day of thy death shall be announced. In fact, Wang Ling didn't think this golden cloud was anything special. It was just a very simple grade 12 telepathic spell. But as soon as Lord Ma opened his mouth, this merman Demon Saint's face instantly broke out in a cold sweat. The pressure of this voice directly penetrating him was too terrifying. His casual words almost caused the Demon Saint to kneel down. He was a peak true immortal. Furthermore, he was the wielder of the holy pillar of the demon world, and had the power of the entire demon world behind him. He was completely different from an ordinary peak true immortal, as he had the will of the entire demon world. Generally speaking, the power of the will of a world was equivalent to 10 heavenly Tao. However, the voice that came from the golden cloud made the Demon Saint shiver uncontrollably. Someone who was a supreme being. Who on earth was this? Demon Saint did his best to restrain his fear as he looked at the golden cloud. May I ask who you are, Senior? Lord Ma, the Supreme Sovereign refuses to speak to you. You're not qualified at all. But as soon as Lord Ma finished speaking, an image suddenly appeared in the golden cloud. It was a pair of eyes. Ling Zhenren's gaze. There was a clatter. Demon Saint was so scared that he dropped the magic staff in his hand. There were times when experts couldn't rely solely on auras to judge the gap between them. Sometimes, it was more direct to communicate by looking at each other. The moment their eyes met, Demon Saint already felt the huge gap between their strengths. He was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Demon Saint wasn't stupid. He could more or less guess the origin of this senior. Perhaps this person was the owner of that green-furred spirit dog below. A wise man submits to circumstances, and Demon Saint was a wise man. This person was stronger than him, and Demon Saint definitely couldn't provoke him, otherwise the demon world might be consigned to eternal damnation. So after some quick consideration, Demon Saint made his own judgment. He replied to Taoist Bronze Turtle and Taoist Witch Demon below. The first sentence was, "Deal with your own private matters." Chapter 589. Demon Saint's decisiveness was beyond Wang Ling's expectations, but he was very satisfied with it. At the very least, he didn't have to do anything himself. Wang Ling didn't want to get involved in the demon world's affairs. Although humans had been studying the demon world all these years, and had even tried to uncover information on the Holy Pillar and Demon Saint, these things were too troublesome. Wang Ling didn't want to get involved at all, nor did he want to care. What's more, he didn't want to be a good Samaritan and provide national agencies with intelligence on the demon world. It was said that it was because of the inner demon that Immortal Genuine had split off that the gate between worlds had repeatedly descended in the human world uncontrollably, causing misunderstandings and even wars between the demon world and the human world. But now that Wang Ling had come into contact with this demon saint, he suddenly realized that this leader of the demon world didn't seem to be the heartless and ruthless person that people said he was. On the contrary, this was a person who abided by the rules, and scrupulously abided by his duty. Even an ambassador of the demon world who violated the rules would be mercilessly punished by Demon Saint. To be honest, Wang Ling felt that this merman demon saint was quite clear about public and private affairs. On this side, right after Demon Saint refused Taoist Bronze Turtle's request, he felt his whole body relax, and the pressure that had been clinging to him earlier disappeared. It seemed that His Excellency Supreme had come precisely because of this matter, and was quite satisfied with how he had handled it. His Excellency Supreme thinks you did a good job. It's fine as long as Your Excellency doesn't make a move. Lord Ma's voice then came from the golden cloud to express Wang Ling's thoughts on his behalf. As long as Demon Saint didn't make a move, Wang Ling couldn't be bothered with the rest. Because Demon Saint was too powerful, if Demon Saint's restriction really targeted Dog 2, this protective golden light shield wouldn't last long when Wang Ling wasn't around. But now that Demon Saint had very sensibly stopped, Wang Ling naturally didn't want to care. Wang Ling would leave the rest to Dog 2. He didn't want to steal the limelight of Dog 2's protection of his family, and he wouldn't let Demon Saint help Dog 2 punish the abominable territory demon god. Because from the very beginning, Buttface had come with the intention of ending everything. If Buttface didn't resolve this matter with his own paws, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to eat dog food in the future. On the other side, the merman demon saint regained his composure and looked at the golden cloud in the void. May I ask who Senior Golden Cloud is? His previous inquiries about Wang Ling's identity had been fruitless, so he wanted to settle for the next best thing, which was to ask who on earth this person was. In fact, even the demon saint himself did not expect such a terrifying existence to exist in this world. The other party's strength had probably surpassed that of a true immortal or even an immortal venerable. Demon Saint's preliminary speculation was that this senior should be an alien from outside the Milky Way. How could a human cultivator on Earth reach this level of strength? After obtaining Wang Ling's permission, Lord Ma very politely answered Demon Saint's question. I serve the Supreme Sovereign. I am the Supreme Sovereign's. When Lord Ma said this, Demon Saint raised his head, his eyes filled with awe. Lord Ma replied, I am the toilet of the Supreme Venerable One, Demon Saint. Everything had a cause and effect. For the rest of their lives, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle might never understand that the real reason why Demon Saint had refused so decisively was because Ling Zhenren had stared at him. The fact that Demon Saint hadn't made a move was beyond Elder Wen's expectations. But after all, this was the first time everyone here had dealt with Demon Saint, and no one knew why he had refused at all. As the highest leader in the demon world, the reasons for whether or not to make a move were often very simple. In the end, Taoist Bronze Turtle and Taoist Witch Demon blamed it on themselves. Perhaps their pleas just now hadn't been strong enough, and Demon Saint hadn't felt their sincerity, giving him the illusion that he was being used as a tool. In the end, they still had to rely on themselves. Brother Dog, you don't have to go this far for me, Elderwin said. His words were in fact a test. He wanted to know Loopy Toad's true identity. Elderwin was sure that he had never seen this green-furred dog before, but it had felt inexplicably familiar. If it really was just a dog on the road who had drawn its sword to help out in the face of injustice, it was a little too exaggerated for it to go this far. Besides, this wasn't the so-called main road, but the peace consulate on the border between the two territories. The most important thing was that this dog wasn't a demon, but a spirit dog. Thus, Elderwin felt that Loopy Toad's purpose in helping them was even more confusing. Let's go out and fight. Dog 2 stared at the envoys from the two territories. Your dog? Taoist Bronze Turtle and Taoist Witch Demon looked at each other in dismay. A dog am enough. After saying that, Loopy Toad opened the door on its own. As it walked out the door, it looked back at Elderwin in passing. Wait for me here, I'll explain to you after I get rid of these two people. Elderwin, With the peace consulate as a safe zone, Dog 2 felt that it couldn't be better, otherwise it would have to split its attention to protect Elderwin. You're courting death. The envoys from the two territories grit their teeth. This dog was going too far. Furthermore, it was too overconfident. They were envoys from two territories, and their strength was equal to or even higher than Demon King's. Where did a mere dog that hadn't even taken human form get its courage from? After two people and a dog left one after another, Taoist Bronze Turtle and Taoist Witch Demon couldn't restrain their anger any longer. Lord Bronze Turtle, let's work together and use long-range spells to break this dog's golden light shield first. These two people had a very clear idea of how to fight. They were clearly people who had been through a lot, and were well aware of the characteristics of the golden light shield. Once it was broken, it would be very difficult for it to form again in a short period of time. If you didn't want to be devoured by the power of the golden light shield, using long-range spells was the best option. But the problem was that this was little Masterling's golden light shield. How could it be broken so easily? Thus, Loopy Toad didn't care at all what tactics these two people were going to use against it. In any case, it just needed to stick to them and fight. Ow! Thinking of this, Dog 2 leaped up and directly spat out the Bone King from its mouth. In an instant, the Bone King transformed into a boxing glove and attached itself to its dog paws. Facing Taoist Witch Demon, it threw out the first and second moves of the basic dog skills. Elderwin also saw this scene. Loopy Toad's attack was very fierce, but what he cared about wasn't the basic dog skills, but the spell that Loopy Toad had used when it had taken out that emerald green bone club. There was no way he was wrong. Chapter 590. The Toad Clan's swallowing technique wasn't a complicated spell. Instead, it was a common demonic spell in the demon realm. It was a spell that could be performed with either demonic or spiritual power as the source. This type of demonic spell was very rare, but the Toad Clan's swallowing technique was one of them. It wasn't complicated to learn, and many of the younger generation of the clan had already mastered it at a very young age. However, it just so happened that this was one of the Toad Clan's unique secret techniques. It rarely fell into the hands of outsiders. So when Loopy Toad took out the Bone King, Elderwin was almost instantly dazed. Previously, he felt that this green-furred dog had a very familiar feeling to him. Could it be Elderwin's eyes were fixed on Dog 2's back, and at that moment he suddenly had a bold guess. As a territory envoy, Taoist Witch Demon had always been Ghost Emperor of the South's right-hand man, and was stronger than the average Demon King. After all, he was a demon race territory envoy of one of the 4 inner territories, and his actual combat strength wouldn't be too weak. Furthermore, as a member of the Ghost Clan, he was naturally immune to physical damage to a certain extent, and ordinary physical attacks were ineffective. As for Taoist Bronze Turtle on the side, there was no need to mention him. The Ghost Clan's natural turtle shield also had a powerful physical damage reduction effect. Loopy Toad was well aware of this, so the reason it had taken out the Bone King from the beginning was to fuse the power of Sword Dao with the Bone King glove and evolve it into a spiked glove so that it could use the power of Sword Dao to deal with these 2 territory envoys. After several rounds of getting used to the Bone King, Dog 2 had become increasingly proficient with its claws. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were startled when they saw this green-furred dog actually launch such a fierce melee attack from the very beginning. Taoist Witch Demon, Bronze Turtle Monarch, help me block it. I'll summon a ghost soldier. It took time to summon a ghost soldier, and it couldn't be interrupted. However, in order to break Loopy Toad's golden light shield, they could only cast a long-range spell. Alright, Witch Demon Lord, I'll block it. Taoist Bronze Turtle was very cooperative as he stepped forward to block it. His entire body surged with an evil blue-black demon light, which actually turned into a powerful chain mail. Elderwin's expressions suddenly changed in the consulate. This was the secret technique of the Turtle Clan, the Turtle Shield technique. It was extremely resistant to physical attacks. If it was just physical spiritual techniques, they might not be of much use. At that moment, Taoist Bronze Turtle stood alone at the front and cooperated with Taoist Witch Demon behind him to summon ghost soldiers. Because of Loopy Toad's golden light shield, Taoist Bronze Turtle didn't dare attack at all for fear of being devoured by it. This was exactly what Buttface wanted. Under the effect of the power of Sword Tao, it would be foolish for him to blindly take a defensive stance. Demon Dog, don't be too arrogant. Taoist Bronze Turtle snorted. He was extremely confident in his turtle shield technique. Once upon a time, the sturdy defense of the Turtle Clan had allowed them to achieve victory on the battlefield. Among the 4 regions, the Turtle Devil of the North was one of the best in the Turtle Clan with the Turtle Shield technique. The Turtle Devil of the North's Turtle Shield technique had been cultivated into the Great Turtle Shield technique. Not only could it block physical attacks, it could also block magical attacks. Turtle Devil wasn't a powerful attacker, but his formidable defense had once caused his opponents to suffer greatly. Now that Turtle Devil of the North was a demon god, many of the opponents he had encountered in the past had been exhausted to death by his powerful, Great Turtle Shield spell. Thus, after Turtle Devil of the North succeeded as the demon god of the 4 inner territories, all the members of the Turtle Clan, regardless of species, began to study how to use the Turtle Shield technique. This was already the first compulsory course for demon beasts of the Turtle Clan after they were born. More and more little demon beasts of the Turtle Clan had mastered the essentials at a very young age. Taoist Bronze Turtle had to admit that his Turtle Shield technique was far less powerful than Turtle Devil's, but as a territory envoy, his Turtle Shield technique was already at the peak of his current realm. It would not be a problem for him to evolve it into the Great Turtle Shield spell after another 100 years of refinement. Everything happened in just a few seconds. The moment Taoist Bronze Turtle used the Turtle Shield technique to condense his chainmail and roar, Buttface, hundreds of fist shadows also arrived like a hail of bullets. Taoist Bronze Turtle was still sneering when Buttface attacked. If it was just an ordinary fist skill, it would have no effect on his chainmail. However, after the 100 punches of the basic dog skills fell one after another, Taoist Bronze Turtle's expression changed. What's going on? Taoist Bronze Turtle was stunned to find that his chainmail had actually cracked under the power of this fist skill. This was something that had never happened before. Seeing that the power of Sword Tao was working, Loopy Toad didn't hold back at all. Now that it had combined the power of the Bone King, its power of Sword Tao was already in its embryonic form. As it approached Taoist Bronze Turtle, he could already sense that there seemed to be a strange gravitational field around this strange green-furred dog that was pulling him in. His body was dragged forward uncontrollably. At that moment, Taoist Bronze Turtle felt like a 5,000-kilogram weight that was being pulled forward by a powerful gravitational force. The uncontrollable force pulled his body and plowed a deep ravine on the ground. A completely naked green-furred dog wildly brandished its emerald green spiked boxing gloves. Loopy Toad could clearly feel that the power of Sword Tao had become even more refined than the last time it had used it. Its proficiency level had already reached 70%. This meant that it had already mastered most of the power of the 10-meter Sword Tao. Under the bombardment of the powerful punches that were accompanied by the power of Sword Tao, the cracks in Taoist Bronze Turtle's chainmail grew more and more numerous. The final blow, Loopy Toad said in a low voice. When it gathered strength for the final punch, the power of Sword Tao actually directly pierced through the chainmail. When the intangible power of Heavenly Tao entered Taoist Bronze Turtle's body, he actually couldn't maintain his human form, and his face directly turned from a human face into a human face. Then blood sprayed out from his nose. He was directly sent flying by this punch. Elderwin was aghast. Loopy Toad's strength had already exceeded his expectations. It was just a set of punches, but it had actually caused serious internal injuries to the territory envoy of the Turtle Clan, who had always been confident in his defense. Mr. Bronze Turtle. Behind Taoist Bronze Turtle, Taoist Witch Demon gritted his teeth. He also hadn't expected a green-furred dog's attack to be so powerful. He could clearly sense that Taoist Bronze Turtle's aura had weakened. If the attack came again, Taoist Bronze Turtle probably wouldn't be able to survive the next round. Taoist Bronze Turtle struggled to prop himself up as he knelt on the ground and spat out blood. His face was filled with horror, and even the way he looked at Dog 2 had changed. Although it was still very hard to believe, Just now, he had indeed sensed the aura of heavenly Tao in this unknown green-furred spirit dog's punches. Chapter 591. The truth was that when Loopy Toad had used the basic dog skills, Taoist Bronze Turtle had already sensed what he suspected to be the power of heavenly Tao, but he hadn't dared confirm it. When those hundreds of meteor-like punches landed on his turtle shield spell chain armor, Taoist Bronze Turtle had a look of disbelief in his eyes. The power of heavenly Tao mixed in with the punches had directly shattered his chain armor and pierced through his body. If it hadn't been for the fact that this power of heavenly Tao didn't seem to be at its full strength, he would have already died just now. Taoist Bronze Turtle was actually right, because Dog 2 could only unleash 70% of its power at the moment, and that was when he was relying on the Bone King. If he had been like Evil Sword God and relied on his own power to unleash the full power of level 10 of Sword Tao, Taoist Bronze Turtle would have died long ago. Which demon lord? Let's retreat for now. There's something wrong with this green-furred dog. Taoist Bronze Turtle vaguely sensed that something was wrong. This was clearly a spirit dog that had yet to take human form, but it actually had the power of heavenly Tao in its body? It was very obvious that either this dog wasn't normal, or its owner wasn't simple. After being pierced by Loopy Toad's power of heavenly Tao, Taoist Bronze Turtle calmed down and could only think of these two possibilities. However, Taoist Witch Demon was already ready to strike, and wasn't going to stop at that moment. Don't be afraid, Witch Demon Lord, get behind me. I'll definitely make this mongrel dog pay a price dozens of times higher than your injuries. Taoist Witch Demon didn't listen to Taoist Bronze Turtle's advice at all. While Taoist Bronze Turtle was blocking Dog 2's attack, he had already set up the ghost flags and a large array on the ground. At that moment, he let out a roar and formed a seal. Countless pitch-black clouds in the sky rolled over like a sea of clouds, giving off a great sense of pressure. Elderwin was inexplicably shocked. Ghost soldiers of this level definitely weren't something that Taoist Witch Demon could summon on his own. The ghost flags he had set up on the ground were most likely fused with the power of the Ghost Emperor of the South. The strength of these ghost soldiers was close to that of a nascent soul cultivator, and the ghost generals among them were even at Demon King level. The problem was that there were too many of them. There weren't just a dozen or 20 of them. They were constantly being created in that roiling black sea of clouds. Brother Dog, you must destroy the ghost returning array. Elderwin reminded him in the peace consulate. In the current situation, Taoist Bronze Turtle had been seriously injured. If he went out to help this dog brother, he would definitely have the upper hand in the situation. However, Elderwin was afraid that these two cunning people still had other tricks up their sleeves. The Toad clan had a lot of offensive spells, and most of them were used for support and defense. Most of them were control-type spells. Therefore, when facing opponents with long-range attack capabilities, they would usually appear quite weak. Therefore, it was not that Elderwin did not want to go out, but he was afraid that his rash action would instead become a stumbling block. At least from the current situation, even without him, this dog brother still had the upper hand. Elderwin had decided in his heart that if the other party was going to sacrifice any big killing move, he would immediately rush out and do his best to block the righteous dog brother, helping the other party to escape. Of the three envoys, Taoist Witch Demon had always been the most difficult to deal with. Soldiers and generals, listen up. Tear that green-furred mongrel up ahead to shreds. Taoist Witch Demon guarded the ghost array he had set up. In his hand was a very small ghost flag, which was an important key to give orders to all the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that had been created in the sky after the ghost array was set up. This resentment was too strong. The ghost soldiers and ghost generals in the sky were thousands of zhang away from Loopy Toad, but even so, it still felt oppressed. This was something that the Golden Light Shield couldn't protect. It could stop these evil spirits from invading the body, but it couldn't stop this kind of strong mental pressure. Dog 2 gritted its teeth. It had to deal with Taoist Witch Demon faster than it had with Taoist Bronze Turtle. Right now, the number of ghost soldiers and ghost generals could still be counted with the naked eye, but if the battle dragged on, it wouldn't be able to deal with these tens of thousands of ghost soldiers and ghost generals at the same time. Kill! This dense mass of evil spirits roared and screamed wildly, their ear-piercing voices shaking heaven and earth. Loopy Toad was accumulating power. The spikes on its glove abruptly sprouted out in large numbers. It had already unleashed the power of the 10-meter sword Tao to the limit of what it could do. "It's no use, mongrel dog," Taoist witch demon sneered. "These ghost soldiers and ghost generals contain the power of the ghost emperor of the south. Given your strength, there's no way you can resist the power of a demon god. Your ugly fist technique has no effect on my ghost soldiers and ghost generals." In the end, as soon as Taoist witch demon said this, 2 ghost soldiers charged at the green-furred dog from the left and right at the same time. Buttface's movements were swift and agile. He dodged the pincer attack of the 2 ghost soldiers at a tricky angle. This swift reaction was thanks to Sheep and Jinka's training earlier. To Dog 2, these ghost soldiers really looked a little clumsy. They were slower than Sheep and weaker than Jinka. Loopy Toad took a deep breath, took out its tape recorder from its mouth, and started to play Dragon Fist. "My right paw opens the sky. I turn into a dog, move the mountains and rivers, and fill up the cracks. Aura 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 aura. Oh, hit 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 hit." Its basic dog skills became faster and faster, and the ghost soldiers who swooped down from the sky cried out the moment they touched the shadow of the fist and were directly shaken to pieces. "What's going on?" Taoist witch demon stared at this scene in disbelief. "It can't be wrong. Witch demon lord. There's the power of heavenly Tao in this mongrel dog's body." Taoist bronze turtle struggled to prop himself up. He had already used several self-healing spells in a row, but none of them had the slightest effect on his internal injuries. This was enough to prove that this was the power of heavenly Tao. After being hit by the power of heavenly Tao, it was nonsense to rely on self-healing spells to heal in a short period of time. How can a mongrel dog that hasn't transformed have the power of heavenly Tao? Taoist witch demon was a little weak. Taoist bronze turtle, "That's the strange thing. Witch demon lord, I think it's better if we retreat first." Retreat? The truth was that Taoist witch demon hadn't thought about retreating at all. How honorable were they, the envoys of 2 demon territories? They were actually helpless against a green-furred dog. He grit his teeth. "No matter what. At the very least, we have to break its golden light shield and kill some of its might." But just as Taoist witch demon was about to have the ghost soldiers and ghost generals attack Loopy Toad again, Loopy Toad suddenly stopped. Because at that moment, Loopy Toad suddenly realized that it actually didn't have to do it personally at all. Hadn't Shen Yuan, that guy, given it an Immortal Seal Master Seal before? It hadn't used it even once. With the idea of giving it a try, Loopy Toad spat out the Immortal Seal Master Seal from its mouth. The moment it injected spirit energy into it, a holy light, like that of an angel, appeared in the sky. Then, the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that filled the sky were directly dispersed. Chapter 592. In the blink of an eye, the instant the red-haired young man's figure descended from the sky, all the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that filled the sky were cleanly purified by the holy light that accompanied him. Taoist witch demon and Taoist bronze turtle turned pale with fright. This person was very terrifying. His appearance had a purifying effect which directly purified heaven and earth, and his aura actually directly affected the ghost array, causing it to directly malfunction. Taoist witch demon stared at this scene in disbelief. He squinted at the ghost array flag, and then realized that cracks had actually appeared on it, and it finally directly crumbled along the flagpole. Taoist witch demon? He had stuck a tempered membrane on the array flag. This person's background wasn't simple at all, but judging from the green-furred mongrel's actions just now, this human cultivator seemed to have been summoned here by the green-furred mongrel. Taoist witch demon immediately had a guess. There should be no mistake. This person should be the green-furred dog's owner. Senior, as a member of the human cultivation world, if possible, please don't interfere in the affairs of my demon world. Taoist witch demon bowed very politely. The arrival of this kind of heaven-defying expert had already destroyed the balance in the demon world, And Taoist Witch Demon felt that Demon Saint definitely wouldn't sit idly by like before. In fact, Taoist Witch Demon wasn't wrong. Because of the will of the demon world, Demon Saint would be the first to notice the slightest disturbance. Immortal Genuine's appearance had caused a huge commotion, and it was impossible for Demon Saint not to notice. As Taoist Witch Demon had said, Immortal Genuine's existence had already destroyed the balance. Demon Saint thought of himself as a businesslike demon. If this red-haired young man did anything overboard, he would consider stopping him. On the holy pillar, Demon Saint narrowed his eyes. Because this young man who had been summoned here wasn't the owner of this spirit dog, the gaze of the dog's owner had left a deep psychological shadow in Demon Saint's heart. That terrifying gaze and that pair of unforgettable dead fish eyes were like a nightmare that could not be dispelled from his mind. Ever since he had succeeded as Demon Saint, there had never been anyone who could give him such enormous psychological pressure with just a gaze. Like what had been said before, when experts exchanged blows, the gap between them could be judged from the look in their eyes. This red-haired youth's overall strength was weaker than the dog's owner's, but he should be on par with him. On the holy pillar, the Beast Saint looked down and made a judgment. On the other side, after receiving the Master Seal's message, Immortal Genuine was directly teleported here. Immortal Genuine had been repairing Drought Star earlier, and was now suddenly teleported here. Although it was a little sudden, he was actually a little happy. It seemed that Senior Dog hadn't forgotten about him. Immortal Genuine turned his head to look at Senior Dog. Senior Dog was dressed in yellow tights today, which looked pretty trendy. The jade green bone club in his hand exuded an indescribable mysterious power. As expected of Senior Dog, it could actually fuse the power of the heavenly Tao into a magic tool. Immortal Genuine was deeply astonished. Why didn't he think of this? This was probably the difference between him and Senior Dog. Just as he was sighing inwardly, one of the Demon Realm domain envoys in charge of setting up ghost formations suddenly spoke to him. Immortal Genuine gave Taoist Witch Demon a disdainful look. I only listened to Senior Dog. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle's faces changed at these words, and they were so shocked that they almost turned to stone. Senior Dog? At that moment, the two envoys as well as Elder when hiding in the Peace Consulate couldn't help sucking in cold breaths of air. It turned out that this red-haired youth wasn't the green-furred dog's owner. Instead, his underling? That was very interesting. What were you doing before I came? Dog 2's tone was completely different from before, and became a little more profound. After all, it had played the role of the Divine Messiah dog before, and it was very clear about its role. In any case, as long as Genuine was around, it just needed to maintain its senior persona. Immortal Genuine cupped his fists in a salute and replied very politely, Senior Dog, this junior is still repairing Drought Star, and is currently more than halfway done. Dog 2, well done. Did I disturb you by summoning you this time? Disturb? How can a senior's summoning be considered a disturbance? This is a rare opportunity for you to learn. The red-haired young man waved his hand and bowed to Dog 2. Senior casually blew up Drought Star's surface with a grade 10 spell. Actually, you can learn a lot from repairing Drought Star. It feels like you're playing Minecraft. As soon as Immortal Genuine finished speaking, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were stupefied again. Grade 10 spell? And it had almost blown up the surface with a grade 10 spell. How could this dog be so awesome? Then what on earth were those two shoddy fist techniques from before? So this green-furred dog hadn't used its full strength at all, and was just playing around? The two envoys were dumbstruck. The conversation between this red-haired young man with unfathomable strength and this green-furred dog was so shocking that the atmosphere in the room froze for a moment. The two envoys' thoughts directly froze, and they didn't know what to say. This junior is slow-witted. May I ask why Senior Dog has summoned me this time? Immortal Genuine said softly. I tested my fist techniques on the two juniors in front of me just now, and I'm a little tired, Loopy Toad said. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle? Loopy Toad, I'm old, and there are times when I can't compete with these energetic youngsters. Especially when it comes to this kind of boring battle that makes me sleepy, and I can't lift my spirits at all. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle? Immortal Zhenyuan smiled. Then, Senior, do you want me to take action? Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle? Loopy Toad, deal with them as you see fit, but don't kill them. Remember to leave them breathing? I still have something to ask them. Very well, Senior. As soon as he said that, Immortal Zhenyuan's aura was released, causing heaven and earth to tremble. An energy mixed with primordial chi shot out from under the red-haired young man's feet and headed straight for the two demon envoys. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were already shivering all over. They only had one thought now, and that was to run. Run as far as they could. This person's strength was too terrifying, far beyond theirs. At that moment, the two envoys sensed the imminent danger of death. They took out their trump cards and fled like mad, turning into two streaks of light as they flew away from here, not even having time to gather up the shattered ghost flags on the ground. Wanna run? Immortal Zhenyuan smiled slightly. Of course, that didn't exist. Chapter 593. Taoist Bronze Turtle was still injured, but this was already the fastest he could run for his life. He felt that even if he had been in perfect condition, he might not have been able to escape as fast as this time. In the face of a true crisis of death, the strength that could erupt from one's body was completely different. Immortal Zhenyu wasn't in a hurry, and watched as the two of them turned into streams of light and swiftly disappeared into the horizon. Throughout the entire process, Dog 2 maintained a very calm appearance. It knew that there was no way Zhenyuan would let these two people escape. Sure enough, after about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the red-haired young man made his move. His palm was like a five-fingered mountain, and layers of nomological laws wrapped around his fingers. It directly penetrated the air around Yuan Fong, causing the space there to shake incessantly until it directly shattered in the end. Immortal Zhenyuan directly reached into the shattered wall of space, and in the end, directly pulled out two figures. They were none other than Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle, who had already run for half an incense stick. Using magic treasures, the two of them had already traversed tens of thousands of li in the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, but they still couldn't escape this punishment. Halfway through their escape, they felt the space behind them shatter one after another, and the collar of their Taoist robes was violently yanked by a tremendous force. When they came back to their senses, they were firmly gripped by a giant palm that looked like it had walked out of a painting of the wilderness. Under this enormous pressure, the two territory envoys couldn't even breathe. Loopy Toad pretended to be unperturbed, but in fact this scene was a huge blow to it. It wasn't just Loopy Toad, Elder One was also inexplicably shaken by this scene. What kind of formidable power was this? It was simply like a miracle. A palm stretching out from the void caught the two territory envoys who had already been on the run for a long time without giving them the slightest chance at all. Dog 2 knew that this was the red-haired young man deliberately flexing his muscles in front of it. He wanted to show off his strength, but this scene was really frightening. It was like watching a blockbuster movie. When Little Master Ling usually cast spells, he would pay special attention to spells with particularly magnificent special effects, and would do his best to avoid them. This actually had something to do with his personality. Little Master Ling was used to keeping a low profile, so he would pay special attention to this point. Immortal Zhenyuan, on the other hand, could be said to have completely different personalities. Since he had chosen to make a move, he would use his most gorgeous spell to capture the other party. It had been the same on Drought Star. Thinking about it carefully, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that gorgeous had already become synonymous with Zhenyuan. By the time Immortal Zhenyuan released the two envoys, the faces of Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were already bruised from the tremendous pressure just now. Both of them felt dizzy and spun around on the spot as if they were drunk. What's going on? Who practiced Tai Chi, still running? Immortal Zhenyuan stared at the two of them and smiled slightly. This smile reminded Dog 2 of Fong Xing. It was Fong Xing's trademark black-bellied smile. He raised his hand and drew a few golden lines in the air with his finger. Then, with a flick of his finger, The golden lines intertwined with each other on the ground like a fairy weaving clothes. In the end, they formed a golden cage. The moment they were trapped in the golden cage, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle felt powerless. This golden cage sealed off their source of power, and they couldn't use their demon energy at all. Furthermore, there was a weakening effect in the golden cage, which made it impossible for them to summon any strength at all. After showing off his skill, the red-haired young man turned around and bowed to Loopy Toad again. "Senior Dog, please excuse me. Of all the restraining spells this junior has, only this grade 9 prison painting spell is the most skillful." Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle almost spat blood. Forget a grade 9 spell, a grade 7 spell was more than enough to trap them. Wait, at that moment, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle caught on to a key point they had overlooked. Did this person just say this was a grade 9 spell? Their faces were already as bruised as seaweed in sauce. A grade 9 spell? Then this person's strength was most likely at peak true immortal level, or perhaps a venerated immortal? Their worldview had already collapsed. Sure enough, human cultivators were all cunning. Wasn't it said that there were no venerated immortal big shots in the human world? Why was it that a green-furred dog could casually summon a venerated immortal underling? Nowadays, even venerated immortal big shots had started to call themselves juniors? Loopy Toad nodded its head and pretended to be calm. In fact, it was already dizzy from the red-haired young man's performance. Ghost. Set after set of high-level spells, full of special effects, it was really gorgeous. That palm you used to capture them just now wasn't bad, Loopy Toad couldn't help praising him. Immortal Jinyuan bowed respectfully. "Senior, you're too kind, that was just the grade 10 spell, Palm of Heaven." Grade 10? Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle turned pale with fright. Very good, just a little bit more and you'll surpass me," Loopy Toad said. Immortal Jinyuan was extremely respectful to Dog 2. "Of course, I still can't figure out Senior Dog's spell." Back then, Senior cast the spell the entire time without any hand seals or even making any movements. You directly used your aura to disperse the grade 12 spell. This junior still can't forget it. Grade 12, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle already didn't know what to say. At that moment, Dog 2 looked at the expressions of the two territory envoys. Their faces were deathly pale, as if they had been washed with a mixture of Tide and Mystery laundry detergent. "Senior Dog, how should we deal with them?" Immortal Jinyuan asked Loopy Toad. Dog 2 looked at Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Actually, it hadn't intended to kill them from the beginning. Although the other side had been heartless, Loopy Toad felt that it couldn't be unjust. Killing these two territory envoys now was just a matter of saying hello, and Jinyuan would be able to squash them like ants as effortlessly as blowing off dust. But even if these two territory envoys suddenly died, it wouldn't solve the problem. Taoist Horseface's death earlier had been punished by Demon Saint's restriction, so Loopy Toad couldn't be blamed. Thus, after learning the ins and outs of the entire matter from Elder Wen's grandson, Loopy Toad had been wondering if there was an appropriate way to resolve the dispute between the four territories so that they could develop peacefully in the future. The demon world had 108 territories, and the four inner territories were the core. As long as the conflict in the core could be resolved, all the demons in the demon world could unite and become one family. So after careful consideration, Loopy Toad made the following decision: let them go. Very well, Senior Dog. The red-haired young man didn't know what Senior Dog was going to do, but he obeyed obediently. With a wave of his hand, he directly removed the golden prison. It had already put on a show of strength. When Loopy Toad approached the two territory envoys again, it could clearly feel them trembling. "I'm sparing your lives for now so that you can pass on my message." Loopy Toad stared at them and said unhurriedly, "In half an hour, we'll descend on the three territories and destroy them all." Then Loopy Toad thought for a bit and felt that this sounded a little biased, so it changed its tone. "Not just the three territories, but the Eastern Territory as well." Hearing this, the expressions of the two envoys, including Elder Wen, changed dramatically. On the side, Immortal Jinyuan understood a little what Senior Dog wanted to do. Chapter 594. This sudden decision was beyond Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle's expectations. They could tell that this wasn't a joke. Furthermore, this red-haired young man did indeed have the strength to do so. For a venerated immortal, tearing apart a planet was very easy, let alone a mere 4 territories. In their extreme consternation, the envoys of the 2 territories left as if they were fleeing. They had to go back and discuss countermeasures with the demon kings of the inner territories. Senior Dog, are you doing this to make the 4 demon gods of the demon world bury the hatchet and unite once again? Immortal Jinyuan asked a moment later. Dog 2 nodded. The truth was that the demon world had been very peaceful for a time, but 100 years ago, when a new generation of demon gods had come to power, disputes had never subsided. There were a lot of extremists in the leadership of this generation of demon gods. Venerated Ox of the West and Ghost Emperor of the South were both pro-war. But Loopy Toad's impression of Turtle Devil of the North had always been that he didn't have his own opinions. The dispute between the Eastern Territory and the other 3 territories this time had actually been single-handedly instigated by the demon gods of the Western and Southern territories. One of the biggest characteristics of the pro-war faction was that they usually only cared about having fun and didn't think about the demon tribes in their territories at all. So Loopy Toad's countermeasure this time was to fight fire with fire and stop war with war. Of course, this war wasn't really a fight. It needed Immortal Jinyuan to cooperate and put on a show. The red-haired young man stared at Dog 2 with a thoughtful expression, his heart filled with admiration. As expected of Senior Dog, it actually worried about the demon world. This was probably a big shot. Only a big shot would have the strength to maintain world peace. What Jinyuan admired the most was Loopy Toad's attitude of educating people and teaching them. How great was this spirit to solve conflicts from the root? Immortal Jinyuan sighed as he gazed into the distance. I hope these demons can understand Senior Dog's good intentions. While he was thinking this, Loopy Toad looked back at the peace consulate. After the envoys of the 2 territories left, Elder Wen also came out of the peace consulate and bowed to Dog 2 before he turned into a stream of light and left. Loopy Toad guessed that he had gone to deliver a message to demon god Scorpion Emperor of the East. Compared with the territory envoys of the other 2 territories, Elder Wen was very calm and unhurried as he walked. Although Elder Wen didn't react for a while when he heard that he wanted to annihilate the 4 territories, judging from his current behavior, but Face felt that Elder Wen must have guessed something. This was actually a way out for the demon gods of the other 3 domains. It was also a life-saving straw for the Eastern domain that had been isolated by the other 3 domains. Now, he was standing on the side of a third party. Whether the 4 regions could unite or not depended on the decision of the 4 demon gods. However, according to Buttface's understanding, the 2 demon gods of the pro-war faction were people who wouldn't give up until they saw the coffin. He reckoned that they wouldn't admit defeat so easily. From Loopy Toad's point of view, this was actually a little idealistic, so it still needed to add fuel to the fire. When you make your move later, be careful. Very well, Senior. Jinyuan nodded in agreement. Then, with Loopy Toad personally leading the way, 1 man and 1 dog flew in the direction of the Western territories. They deliberately waited at the entrance of the peace consulate for a while before setting off, in order to make sure that Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle had delivered the message. When they arrived at the pass to the Western territories, Loopy Toad saw an astonishing scene. A burly man with bull horns on his head was guarding the entrance with the Guan King blade in his hand. Behind this burly man were thousands of demonic beasts. Among them, there was no lack of demon kings from various tribes in the western region. All of them had gathered here in the shortest time possible. To be honest, Loopy Toad had never seen such an array of forces when it had been king. All the demon kings had gathered together and a demon god was keeping watch. This demon chi was really too majestic. Loopy Toad was suddenly very glad that it had the golden light shield, otherwise it would have really been a little unsteady in this array of forces. That Taoist Witch Demon from before was standing next to the bullhorned man. Your Highness Venerable Ox, I've already received news that Ghost Emperor will arrive very soon to assist in the battle. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories frowned and looked very unruly. The Guan King blade in his hand glowed with silver light, and a powerful demonic aura gathered on its blade. The bull horn necklace hanging around his neck was also of unusual origin. After hearing Taoist witch demon's words, Venerable Ox lifted his red cloak and bared his upper body to reveal his incomparably majestic muscles. I'm afraid Ghost Emperor won't need to come in person? Loopy Toad sneered at Venerable Ox's attitude, and it turned its head to ask, "What do you think?" "This junior already completely understands senior's thinking," said Immortal Jinyuan. Sometimes, it really wasn't a good thing to be too confident in oneself. Many people thought that they already saw the whole world, but in fact, they were just frogs at the bottom of a well. Jinyuan had always felt that he had a deep understanding of this point. Before he had met Senior Dog, he had thought that venerated Immortal was already the strongest realm, but later he realized that this wasn't the case at all. There was always someone better out there. No matter how high one's position was, one had to maintain a proper attitude at all times and maintain a sense of humility. Having no confidence and being too confident were both extremes. "So you were the ones who killed my horseface?" Venerable Ox of the Western Territories gripped the Guan King blade tightly, and a powerful current of air accompanied by a tyrannical demonic aura exhaled from his nose. Even the nose ring on his nose vibrated with this aura. This was a type of sound wave spell that could exert a powerful mental pressure through the vibration between his breath and the nose ring. Jinyuan sighed at this scene and snapped his fingers at the sound wave spell. Dog 2 saw a circle of golden ripples spread out from Jinyuan's hand and directly cancel out Venerable Ox of the Western Territories' sound wave spell. Not only that, this simple snap of his fingers actually stirred up a strong wind, causing the expressions of all the demons present to change dramatically. It was just a snap of his fingers. He actually had this kind of power. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories' eyes darkened, and he immediately soared into the air. He raised the Guan King blade and prepared to make his move, boundless demonic aura instantly condensing on the blade. At that moment, Jinyuan snapped his fingers a second time. All the demons present heard the sound of metal shattering. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories never expected that before he could slash down with his blade, all that was left of the Guan King blade in his hand was a stick. Still want to struggle? If Senior Dog personally made a move, this snap of his fingers would have already destroyed you in both body and soul. In the air, Jinyuan smiled at Venerable Ox of the Western Territories. You know nothing about power at all. Chapter 595. The moment the Guan King blade shattered, Venerable Ox of the West broke out in a cold sweat as he realized that this wasn't an opponent he could touch. Jinyuan frowned as he stared at this scene. Since he had become a venerated Immortal, apart from his grudge with his inner demon, Wind Spirit, he had very few other fights. It could be said that apart from fighting Wind Spirit, he hadn't come into contact with anyone else in the last 100 years. The demon gods of the demon world, and of the 4 inner territories at that, should be the strongest existences apart from Demon Saint. But Jinyuan's first impression now was 2 words. So weak, 2 words. So weak. Thinking this, the red-haired young man suddenly looked at Dog 2 on the side, and his admiration for Loopy Toad deepened. In the end, this was Senior Dog, who repeatedly reminded him to hold back and not be too heavy-handed. Otherwise, given his normal strength, this Venerable Ox of the West would have already died. All of a sudden, Immortal Jinyuan started to imagine why Loopy Toad hadn't made a move, but had instead chosen to summon him. It definitely wasn't that Senior Dog didn't want to make a move, and it definitely wasn't because it was bored or lazy. For a powerful dog like Senior Dog, if it wasn't careful and didn't control its strength, wouldn't destroying the demon world be a matter of minutes? Thus, Jinyuan felt that Senior Dog had a sense of duty to care for all living things in the world. What kind of spirit was this? It was moving. Thinking this, Jinyuan couldn't help looking at Loopy Toad, and felt that Senior Dog was growing taller and taller in his eyes. Too too dazzling. A warm flush rose on Jinyuan's face, and his heart was filled with anticipation. He wondered when he would be able to cultivate to senior dog's level. In any case, at this stage, Jinyuan felt that it was fine as long as he followed senior dog. This seemed to be very helpful in improving his state of mind. On the other side, Venerable Ox of the West was very embarrassed. The main point wasn't that his Guan King blade had been broken. The main point was that his first move had been so easily neutralized by the other party. This already couldn't be said to have been killed before achieving victory, but to have been flushed down the toilet. Furthermore, it had been done in front of all the demons, which made Venerable Ox of the West feel utterly humiliated. After Jinyuan taught Venerable Ox of the West a lesson, Loopy Toad just quietly gazed into the air and maintained its image as a senior expert. A few minutes later, it raised its head and pointed to a direction in the void. The others also looked over. Venerable Ox of the West and Taoist Witch Demon on the ground were overjoyed. They knew that reinforcements had arrived. But just as their heads turned a few centimeters away, Jinyuan raised his left index finger and pressed down lightly. Venerated Ox of the West and Taoist Witch Demon instantly felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on their heads. Their entire bodies were buried into the ground, leaving only their heads exposed. Most importantly, this spell also had a restrictive effect, making it impossible for them to break free. Venerable Ox of the West was furious, but he didn't dare to speak at all. This pressure was too great. It gave him the illusion that if he said anything wrong, his neck would immediately be snapped. Right after the rider, the thousands of demons behind Venerable Ox of the West, including the Demon King, were also pressed into the ground one by Jinyuan, with only their heads sticking out. What kind of scene was this? This dense mass of darkness. But Face felt a chill in his heart. It would be great if someone with trypophobia was here. Senior, there are two auras approaching here. Immortal Jinyuan smiled, his expression relaxed. Now that the main actors and supporting actors were almost all here, this scene should be very exciting. Since fighting was no longer fun, he might as well enjoy being an actor. Immortal Jinyuan had always wanted to shoot a movie as a promotional video for Drought Star's migration, and now was a good opportunity to practice his acting skills. The most important thing was that he could learn from Senior Dog how to be a director. In the sky, the demon gods of the other two territories, Ghost Emperor of the South and Turtle Devil of the North, arrived one after another. Their strength was on par with Venerated Ox of the West. Jinyuan could press each of them into the ground with a flip of his hand. When the two great demon gods arrived, they just happened to see Venerated Ox of the West and thousands of demon beasts of the West buried in the ground, with only their heads sticking out. Ghost Emperor of the South and Turtle Devil of the North stared blankly at the same time. What were they doing? Whack-a-mole? Seeing his capable subordinate Taoist Witch Demon buried in the ground, Ghost Emperor of the South was directly furious. He stared at Loopy Toad and Immortal Jinyuan in the sky. How dare you? But before he could finish speaking, he felt the ground under his feet sink. In the next second, Ghost Emperor of the South directly sank into the ground. Loopy Toad couldn't help sighing in its heart. This was too tragic. It was a completely one-sided beating. Turtle Devil of the North was even more miserable than Ghost Emperor of the South. After Ghost Emperor of the South was buried into the ground, Turtle Devil of the North didn't even say a word. Furthermore, Jinyuan had specially lined up the three demon gods in a row. It had to be said that this scene was really comical. Buried in the ground with a despairing expression, Venerated Ox of the West communicated telepathically, "Why didn't you bring more people?" Ghost Emperor of the South grit his teeth. "I could have directly summoned my 10 million ghost generals. I didn't have to bring them with me at all. But who knew that I would be buried as soon as I arrived?" Turtle Devil of the North side. In this situation, unless Demon Saint makes a move, this person's strength is too far below ours. At this point, all the demons were silent. Hearing this, Dog 2 smiled in his heart. In fact, Turtle Devil of the North had mentioned a key point, and that was to summon Demon Saint. Demon Saint generally didn't care about worldly affairs in the demon world, unless some demon beasts violated the rules and restrictions. Under normal circumstances, Demon Saint wouldn't easily show up and make a move. However, if they wanted Demon Saint to make a move, the demon gods of the 4 inner territories would have to pray together. Now that the 3 territories had deliberately joined forces to isolate the East Territory, whether or not Scorpion King of the East would come here was another matter, let alone accompany them in praying to summon Demon Saint. Ghost Emperor of the South said telepathically, "This dog is too deranged. Venerated Ox of the West, what is this kind of big shot doing in the demon world?" Turtle Devil of the North, "I told you not to stir up trouble. Look, we're short of 1 person in this situation. If Scorpion King doesn't come, we'll all die." The 3 demon gods were now filled with regret. They knew Demon Saint's personality too well. The demon gods of the 4 inner regions were all chosen by Demon Sage and used their great powers to inherit their power. Therefore, to Demon Sage, their existence was actually completely dispensable. If it wasn't for the demon gods of the 4 inner regions working together to pray, it would be impossible to summon Demon Sage. Dog 2 stared at this scene, flicked his tail, and said in a very cold and determined voice, "First, execute all those buried here." Chapter 596. Very well, Senior Dog. As always, Shenyuan was very obedient and directly nodded in agreement. In fact, he knew very well in his heart that this was just a threat and that there was no way he would actually make a move. But when he saw the thousands of demon beasts' faces turn pale with fright, Shenyuan actually felt a little amused and couldn't help smiling. It turned out that teasing these little demon beasts was so interesting. There was something wrong with this smile, and Loopy Toad wondered if it had inadvertently triggered some strange hidden attribute in Immortal Shenyuan. Many years later, Loopy Toad would regret summoning Shenyuan here to help it today. If it had known earlier, it would have been more frank and asked Little Masterling to help it. Of course, all of this would happen in the future. Senior Dog, do you want to sit down? Chopping off the heads of 1,000 demons, this scene is spectacular. Immortal Shenyuan stared at the 1,000 or so pale-faced heads below him as he spoke excitedly about something that sounded very scary. "All right," Loopy Toad replied. I'll prepare a chair for you, Senior." Immortal Shenyuan nodded, and then didn't make any big movements. He just used his index finger to draw a magic array in the air and then pushed it toward the sky. Whoosh! Dog 2 saw Shenyuan blow lightly at the magic array, and it instantly released a golden mist. Loopy Toad guessed that Shenyuan was most likely going to do something outrageous again. It realized that Immortal Shenyuan had a kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder when it came to casting spells, which was that they had to be gorgeous. Furthermore, this wasn't a spell from Huaxiao Nation. Looking at the structure of the golden array, most of the symbols inside were from the West. Since it's a chair for Senior, it has to be grand. Shenyuan turned to look at Loopy Toad and smiled. Then he made a seal with one hand, and heaven and earth instantly shook. The thousands of demon beasts on the ground couldn't help shaking their heads under the pressure of the tremors. Loopy Toad saw that some of the demon beasts in the back row were already foaming at the mouth from the tremors. Loopy Toad. Then, the golden magic circle carved in the void began to rotate like a disc, magnifying countless times. A passageway opened up in the magic circle, and many armored Western soldiers walked out. Immortal Shenyuan. This is the Grade 9 Heroic Spirit Summoning spell I learned from Huaxiao Nation. I only remembered it when I saw that Junior used the Ghost General Summoning Array earlier. Moreover, under my modifications, this spell is currently close to the 10th rank. Furthermore, it had incorporated a lot of Eastern construction concepts into it. Senior looked. As he spoke, Immortal Shenyuan pointed at the entrance to the summoning array. Sure enough, apart from the Western soldiers, there were also a lot of ancient Huaxiao soldiers in gray armor. Immortal Shenyuan, I fused these ancient Huaxiao soldiers into the spell after I modified it. The flaw of this technique is that you need to find the corresponding sacrifice to summon the heroic spirit. In order to integrate our Eastern culture into it, 100 years ago, I bought a large number of terracotta soldiers. Loopy Toad, all the demons, Immortal Shenyuan smiled. Currently, The total number of Western and Eastern soldiers I can summon is exactly 100,000. 100,000, Loopy Toad was stunned. All of you come out. Jinyuan controlled the heroic spirits that poured out of the heroic spirit summoning array in a steady stream. There were roughly 10,000 of them, and they lined up in square formations, which looked extremely spectacular. The most important thing was that each of the heroic spirits was actually at the soul formation stage. Ghost Emperor of the South, who was buried in the ground, paled when he saw this. He recalled how he had actually tried to use his ghost generals and ghost soldiers to fight back. Among the ghost soldiers and ghost generals he had summoned, only one was at the soul formation stage. But the heroic spirits that had appeared in front of him were actually all at the soul formation stage. The most frightening thing was that there were only 10,000 of them. According to that red-haired young man, he still had 90,000 in reserve. Ghost Emperor was instantly speechless at the huge difference in strength. They regarded grade 8 spells as the most precious treasures, but the other party could summon a grade 10 spell with a flick of his hand. Senior, wait a little longer, I'll build a chair for you right away. In the air, Immortal Jinyun looked at the 10,000 soldiers he had summoned and said, Loopy Toad, all the demons, build a chair? Then, these tens of thousands of heroic spirits began to move. Everyone could see that on the vast land of the Western Regions Pass, the soldiers in the back row stepped on the shoulders and backs of the soldiers in the front row, stacking layer by layer, carrying out a human pyramid. They used their own bodies to connect and build, and in the end, they actually formed a huge throne. This was a heroic spirit throne built by heroic spirits. It had a high back and wide armrests, and it looked gorgeous and grand. Most importantly, it was majestic and had a domineering aura, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. Dog 2 suppressed the shock in its heart. Senior, please. Immortal Jinyuan raised his hand in a welcoming gesture. Then, Dog 2 sat down at the top. To be honest, it wasn't very comfortable, but in the end, it won in terms of momentum. Senior Dog, do you need to say something? I have a lighting technician among my heroic spirits. Jinyuan floated next to Dog 2 and smiled slightly. Lighting technician? Yes, lighting technician. After that, Jinyuan clapped his hands, and Dog 2 saw a coquettish young man in golden armor slowly walk out of the heroic spirit summoning array in the air. His hair was combed blonde and he wore earrings. With his arms crossed, this young man looked very unruly and insufferably arrogant. Then, the blonde young man strolled through the air to Loopy Toad's side. Loopy Toad then felt a figure descend on its back. Along with this figure was a cluster of lights which gathered on Dog 2's body from above, making Dog 2 feel like it had become the focal point in that moment. The only flaw was that the magic artifact used to gather the light was a little lacking in style. When Loopy Toad looked at it, it realized that it was actually a street lamp. Senior Dog, you don't know, but it cost me a lot to summon this lighting technician back then. Jinyuan stared at the blonde young man holding the street lamp and sighed deeply. To be honest, I didn't really want him back then, but after thinking about it, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have him as a flashlight. The key is that he looks gorgeous. He's shining gold all over. Loopy Toad looked up at the slightly yellow street lamp. But isn't this street lamp a little dark? Does Senior Dog think it's dark? That's fine, you can adjust it. Immortal Jinyuan snapped his fingers and directly said to the blonde young man, Gilgamesh, did you hear that? Senior Dog wants you to turn on the light a little brighter. Loopy Toad. Chapter 597. Passing through the layers of clouds to the top of the holy pillar, the demon saint calmly watched the movements of the mortal world with his scepter in hand. Behind demonic saint, an old man in a white Taoist robe approached. He looked at the lower realm and smiled. You're not going to make a move? The old man was the holy master of second-generation demon saint and was inseparable from demon saint. His main duty was to assist demon saint in better managing the demon world and also to supervise demon saint's succession as a supervisor. There were rumors in the outside world that the title of demon saint was hereditary, but that was not the case. When he heard the old man's question, second-generation demon saint shook his head. I've wanted to teach these juniors a lesson for a long time. It's naturally great that someone will do it on my behalf. Moreover, I could feel that they didn't really want to kill me. Now, the only thing I'm curious about is where this dog came from. He looked at the old man beside him. Do you have any clues, sacred teacher? Not a single clue. The sage sovereign shook his head bluntly. I've already checked with the destiny sphere, but all I see is a blurry mosaic. Mosaic? Second-generation demon saint was stunned. The sage master nodded. This mosaic should have a direct connection with the dog's owner. The dog's owner had an unusual background. Perhaps he was not a human cultivator from Earth at all. It was very likely that he came from another galaxy. We can't detect the creatures from outside the Milky Way, but they are indeed very scary. When the first demon saint was in power, he once encountered a gorilla from outside the Milky Way. That gorilla accidentally passed through the spatial wall to the demon realm and almost tore down this sacred pillar. Second-generation demon saint was startled. Really? Why didn't I know about this? The sage master said, of course you don't know. The history of the Milky Way's invasion is only recorded in the demon saint's holy palace. But you haven't seen any of these since you took the throne. Second-generation demon saint was silent for a moment before he said, Sage Master, you should know that becoming demon saint wasn't my intention, but this is the will of the heavens. Sage Sovereign said, I was the one who decided on the first-generation demonic saint's succession method. After that, it was up to the first-generation demonic saint to decide the succession method. That was how the first generation had gone through. Indeed, the method of succession might be a little strange. At this point, second-generation demon saint wanted to cry. It's more than just a little weird. The sage master shook his head. There's nothing you can do. If you want to retire, you'll have to wait for the next demon saint to appear. Otherwise, you will suffer the backlash of the holy pillar. I have already explained the specific consequences to you when you succeeded the throne. Second-generation demon saint was silent. In fact, he had a hunch that it wouldn't be long before the next demon saint appeared. Buttface sat on the throne, which was made up of the souls of the Western and Eastern soldiers. He looked down from a high vantage point. This throne was made up of tens of thousands of souls at the soul formation stage. Just the aura of this throne was enough to make people feel a sense of solemnity and fear. As these auras overlapped, the originally azure sky was covered in a layer of dusky clouds, instantly changing the color of the world. Gilgamesh adjusted the light to the maximum and focused it on Buttface's head. This scene was actually quite artistic, and Jinyuan was very satisfied. Under his guidance over the years, Gilgamesh's lighting skills had become better and better. Almost there. At this time, Buttface suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. In the east, there were two more auras approaching. Scorpion King of the East and Elder One had arrived together. At this point, the actors were completely in place. Jinyuan had thought of building this throne of martyrs earlier to stall for time until Scorpion King showed up. The appearance of Scorpion King made the demon gods of the south, north, and west feel ashamed of their inferiority. They had joined hands to exclude the East territory previously in order to isolate it, which was currently the strongest of the four inner territories. This included framing the sky-swallowing Toad clan for hiding magic weapons of mass destruction, issuing a list of tariffs that were more than 100 times the price of the East territory, and raising trade barriers. This was all to suppress the East territory. They had thought that they were going to die today without a doubt, and had never expected to see Scorpion King and Elder One appear together. The pressure exerted by the throne formed by the souls of over 10,000 soul formation stage soldiers was simply too great, and it formed a natural restriction. A golden mist revolved around it, making it impossible for anyone to see what was in front of them. Even eye techniques were unable to see through it. Scorpion King and Elder One had no choice but to descend from the sky far away. Unable to fly anymore, they could only approach on foot. When they appeared at the pass to the West Territory and saw this towering throne made of martyrs, Scorpion King of the East and Elder One almost instantly had the illusion that they had walked into a miracle. Your Highness, this is the place. Elderwin said with difficulty to the young man in a purple and gold Taoist robe next to him. At that moment, even opening his mouth to speak, Elderwin felt the greatest pressure. The young man standing beside him had a head of grayish-white long hair, and there was an ordinary-looking hairpin in his bun. This was a divine artifact, refined from the young man's stinger. As they approached, they felt their footsteps grow heavier. I sensed the auras of venerated ox, ghost emperor and turtle devil nearby. Apart from them, there are also the auras of many other demon beasts. Scorpion King looked around. Where are they? Elderwin, Scorpion King, please raise your foot. The one you're stepping on is them. Scorpion King. Because of the golden mist generated by the martyr's throne swirling around them, Scorpion King didn't notice what was under his feet for a moment. When he heard Elderwin's reminder, he looked down and was completely shocked. The ground under his feet was actually full of demon beasts, the demon kings of the West Territory, including the demon gods of the 3 territories, were all buried in the ground, with only their heads sticking out. The young man in purple sucked in a cold breath. F***K. Was this a game of whack-a-mole? The young man raised his foot just in time to see Turtle Devil under his foot. Turtle Devil's head had already been stomped back into its shell, and when it poked its head out again, there was still a shoe print on its face. Scorpion King was instantly in a good mood. He had been bullied in the East Territory for several months. This foot. It was really too comfortable to step on. He vented his anger. The young man was thinking about whether to step on other people's faces a few more times, but before he could do so, he felt pressure on his shoulder. You two go down as well, Genuine attacked again. Then, Scorpion King and Elderwin were horrified to find that their bodies were sinking. The two of them were accurately buried next to venerated ox of the West Territory. At this point, all the demon gods of the 4 inner territories had gathered, and without exception, they were all buried. Chapter 598. The moment his body sank into the ground, Scorpion King actually saw the ending of his demon life in his mind. So, was he going to die? When he came back to his senses, Scorpion King was deeply aware of how terrifying the enemy in front of him was. He couldn't resist this power at all, and the gap between their strength was like that between the firmament and an ant. Furthermore, perhaps they weren't even as good as ants. They were just like a pile of rice fields. Scorpion King wasn't the only one who felt this way. All the demon beasts buried in the ground saw the ending of their demon lives. Were they going to die just like this? Most creatures, not just humans, often only learn to cherish something after they lost it. There were many things in this, and life was one of them. War brought glory and pleasure to the demon gods, the rulers of the demon territory, but the pain was still deeply imprinted on the bodies of the demon people. So in the moment when they thought they were going to die when they were buried in the ground, the first thing the demon kings and demon beasts in the rear thought about was peace. The demon world hadn't been peaceful for nearly 100 years, and there were conflicts everywhere. Tribes could even fight over a bit of cultivation resources. Even earlier, all the resources in the demon world had been shared. In that moment, the demon kings and the demon beasts under their command were all thinking about one question. What was it that made them become more and more selfish? If they had a chance to start over, they would want peace, and would never help the evildoer. At the same time, the demon gods of the 4 territories were also pondering the same question. If they had united earlier, the 4 demon gods of the inner territories would have worked together to pray and summon demon saint to descend, and they wouldn't have ended up like this. Peace. That was what they needed. This torture that came from the depths of their souls seemed to go on for a very, very long time, but in fact only lasted for a few short seconds. This was also Genuine's method. This spell to bury the demon gods and demon kings and demon beasts in the ground was called the burial spell. It was originally a secret technique of some ancient cultivation sect, and it was full of blood and violence. It could be used anywhere there was soil and sand. It used the power of the earth to bind people, and then bit by bit, it would entangle them to death. But this burial spell was an improved version of Genuine's. It wasn't as brutal as the original, and was used purely as a control spell. Together with the soul-returning lantern, A spiritual interrogation spell, the two of them were like a golden partner. This soul-returning lantern is a 10th grade spell that I created myself. It will make people think from the bottom of their hearts. Where did I come from? Where did I die? Why did I appear in this world? Does the universe have an end? Is there a length of time? Was the flood dragon bald? How do you pronounce Honghu? These are all problems. Loopy Toad suddenly felt that Jinyun was really a genius. At the very least, apart from Little Master Ling, no one he had ever met had a better understanding of cultivation than Jinyun. Apart from luck, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that Jinyuan's talent was also a big part of the reason he was able to reach venerated immortal level. Looking at the demon gods and demon beasts below, all of them came back to their senses from the mental interrogation spell of the soul-returning lantern. Loopy Toad opened its mouth slowly. Any last words? Do you have any last words? Any last words? Any last words? Loopy Toad. Holy shit! Where did this echo come from? Wasn't this evil sword god's attribute? Loopy Toad felt that this time, it really was a little like a villain. Immortal Jinyun, oh that's right, I forgot to tell Senior Dog that the Throne of Martyrs has its own echo-spreading effect. Loopy Toad was alarmed. A built-in echo-spreading effect? Now that it's come to this, we only have ourselves to blame, and I don't want to repeat it. If this Senior Dog is willing to give us a chance, no matter what the final outcome is, even if our bodies and souls are destroyed, we have no complaints. When Venerable Ox of the West said this, the faces of the demon gods of the 4 territories darkened. Loopy Toad, what else do you have to fight me with? Demon Saint. Venerable Ox of the West said resolutely, as long as Senior is willing to release us, we can summon Demon Saint. Loopy Toad rubbed its head with one paw. I almost forgot about this, Junior. Above the holy pillar. Demon Saint? You want to use Demon Saint to deal with me? Loopy Toad continued to play along with the plot with a contemptuous look in its eyes as it snorted coldly. Why would I need to personally deal with Demon Saint? Jinyun, release them? Immortal Jinyun had a conflicted expression on his face. Senior Dog, is this okay? It took me a lot of effort to trap them. All the demons? This is to make them despair completely. Dog 2 pretended to be profound as it said, actually, I'm a little tired after being in the demon world for so long. If this Demon Saint of the demon realm can amuse me, I can indeed let these rude juniors go. Actually, I've never been one to advocate war, and prefer peaceful days. If it wasn't for the envoys in the peace consulate who angered me, I wouldn't have made a move today. After saying this, the fur on Loopy Toad's back bristled slightly. It had been provoked by its own words. Jinyuan sighed. Senior Dog is so kind. Taoist Witch Demon? Buried in the ground, the corners of Taoist Witch Demon's mouth couldn't help twitching. Why did he remember that it was this green-furred dog who had made the first move back then? It had broken through the window with a flying kick, which had directly kicked Lord Horseface senseless. This plot wasn't right. Jinyun then snapped his fingers and untied all the demons. He looked down at the 4 demon gods. I've never fought Demon Saint before, but since Senior Dog is here this time, as a junior, I should indeed put on a good show. When you convey your will to Demon Saint, please tell him not to hold back, otherwise there's no way he can defeat me. All the demons sweated. In the face of absolute power, they had no way to refute. At that moment, Ghost Emperor couldn't help asking, this red-haired senior, may this junior ask you a question? He had mustered up the courage to ask this question. Go ahead, said Immortal Jinyun. May I ask Senior's Taoist name? My Taoist name? In front of Senior Dog, no Taoist name is worth mentioning. The red-haired young man narrowed his eyes and smiled slightly. My Taoist name is Jinyun. Jinyun, all the demons' jaws dropped when they heard this, and even second-generation demon Saint on the Holy Pillar had a stunned expression on his face. It was actually him. Chapter 599. At that moment, all the demons broke out in a cold sweat like a waterfall that couldn't be stopped. Immortal Jinyun, the legendary human cultivator known as the only venerated immortal of all human cultivators in the world, was actually standing right in front of them, and was actually willing to be a hired thug for an unidentified green-furred dog. Atop the holy pillar, Sage Master had a surprised expression on his face. "I've checked this dog over and over, and it's just a second-class spirit beast. Why does this legendary human cultivator, Immortal Jinyin, address it as senior dog?" This Sage Master was very powerful and proficient in perception and divination spells. He was very confident in his perception ability, which could be seen from how he had seen a mosaic when he had been tracking Wang Ling earlier. In the end, this Sage Master still didn't know the dog's owner's specific identity. But if it was an ordinary person, he probably wouldn't even be able to track down the mosaic. Sage Master sucked in a breath. Is this dog really very strong? Is my perception wrong? The point was that he had never failed in his perception before. Scepter in hand, second-generation demon saint was also dazed. A moment later, he turned his head to look at Sage Master and said, "Hen." Sage Master. It could only be said that this dog wasn't ordinary. Perhaps it really wasn't as simple as they thought, otherwise there was no way to explain the situation in front of them. Before knowing Jinyuan's true identity, they had thought that this cultivator was only willing to lower himself to be a hired thug for the sake of the dog's owner's face. But after knowing his true identity, things were different, because Jinyuan's Taoist name was so resounding that it wasn't just in the human world, but also in the demon world. How could such a legendary figure with his own untamed nature easily become someone's hired thug? Moreover, judging from the attitude of this legendary cultivator toward the dog, it could be said that he was very respectful. He practically regarded the dog as his biological father. What are you going to do now?" Sage Master asked as he stroked his white beard. As Demon Saint's assistant, Sage Master didn't have the right to obstruct or interfere with Demon Saint's judgment. This was forbidden, and was also a prohibition on the Holy Pillar. This prohibition was also a rule set by the first-generation Demon Saint when he prayed to the sacred pillar, so as to prevent the subsequent Demon Saints from being disturbed by their bosom friends when they led the demon world. Second-generation Demon Saint. Let's go with their script first. In fact, I also want to see how strong this legendary human cultivator is. I just need to be a little more careful, yes. Sage Master nodded. Actually, I think the dog's owner's identity might be even more extraordinary. Thinking of those dead fish eyes which had terrified him, second-generation Demon Saint got goosebumps all over. I'd rather believe that they were aliens from beyond the Milky Way. The Sage Master, later, we can actually study the outer Milky Way. In the past, the first-generation Demon Saint had actually done related scientific and educational films. Moreover, this educational film is based on the incident of the extraterrestrial gorilla that almost tore down the Holy Pillar. Second-generation Demon Saint was stunned. There's a science and education film? Sage Master, it's in the Sutra Depository. I'll find it later. It's called You from the Planet of the Apes. Second-generation Demon Saint. On the other side, Dog 2 and Jinyuan quietly waited for the 4 demon gods to summon Demon Saint. The 4 demon gods held hands as they formed a circle and closed their eyes to pray. This was a historic scene, and all the demons present felt that it could be recorded in the history of the demon world. In the last 100 years, there had been endless disputes in the inner territory of the demon world. It had already been 700 or 800 years since the last time the 4 demon gods had sat down together and calmly negotiated. Now, they were actually working hand in hand to summon Demon Saint. Dozens of seconds later, the clouds in the sky split open, and a brilliant blue light fell from the sky. All the demons present knelt down in reverence and kowtowed one after another. Demon Saint had really responded. Dog 2 and Jinyin stared at this blue beam of light, and in the center of which a blurry figure slowly descended. Then, the blue beam of light disappeared and turned into a mist that spread out to envelop the figure. Just a virtual body? Jinyuan, dressed in fiery red Taoist robes the color of maple leaves, rose into the air and stared at Demon Saint's virtual body. Jinyuan was a little displeased that it wasn't Demon Saint's real body that had descended. But after all, this was just an act, and there was no need to be so serious. In fact, it wasn't that Jin Yuan didn't understand. Since Demon Saint had never shown his face before, he had to maintain a sense of mystery. Jin Yuan had always felt that this was a bad habit that had been infected by the damn big-head pervert in some comprehensive entertainment news program. Sighing in his heart, Jin Yuan stood with his hands behind his back. A red light rose from under his feet and gave off an even more intimidating light. Dog 2 saw a tremendous amount of spirit power coalesce into a tall virtual figure behind Jin Yuan. This was a venerated Immortal's Dharma image. All the demons were horrified. The aura of Demon Saint's virtual body collided with that of the venerated Immortal's Dharma image, and it was really too terrifying. This wasn't a direct showdown between the two of them, but a battle between a virtual body and a Dharma image. This was because whether the virtual body or the Dharma image was injured, the injuries would ultimately be reflected back on the real body. The showdown was about to begin. Let me see what a legendary cultivator is capable of. Above the holy pillar, Demon Saint used his scepter to control the virtual body as he narrowed his eyes at Immortal Jin Yuan. The next moment, he slammed his scepter into the ground, and the virtual body beneath him instantly shone with a demonic light as it exuded a kind of withering power, which affected the entire demon world. All the vegetation in the demon world withered. The range of this power was very wide. It was just an aura, but it caused everything within 10,000 li to wither, and it was as if the whole world had lost its color. Was this the power of Demon Saint? All the demons turned pale with fright. Apart from demon gods, none of the demon kings or demon beasts in the domain had ever personally experienced the power of Demon Saint. Withered trees come to life. Jin Yuan let out a low cry, and then a pure and holy golden light shot out of his hand, shining in all directions like a rising sun. This wasn't a spell, but a kind of power that could be used at will to awaken and revive the withered vegetation. All the demons stared at the vegetation on the ground. When the two forces collided, the vegetation withered and revived and then withered again, and then revived again. Dog 2 could tell that the two of them were using their respective virtual bodies and Dharma images to arm wrestle. This was a relatively peaceful method. If they directly clashed with auras, the entire demon world would suffer. It was just that the vegetation looked a little pitiful. Interesting. Demon Saint's interest was suddenly piqued by this collision. He slammed his scepter into the ground again to increase his strength. Very quickly, Jin Yuan felt the withered power emanating from the virtual body increase. This wasn't a simple increase, but Demon Saint had added a heavenly Tao to the withered power, using the aura of heavenly Tao to fuel it. Jin Yuan raised an eyebrow, and then controlled the Dharma image to also activate the power of heavenly Tao. How many heavenly Tao do you have? At that moment, Demon Saint's voice came from the virtual body. He felt that Jin Yuan had no more than 3 at most. Immortal Jin Yuan, guess. I'm too lazy to guess, I'll just test you. The virtual body laughed and then roared, Holy Pillar, please grant me power. As soon as it said that, the withered power instantly intensified once again. In a flash, the number of heavenly Tao mixed in with the withered power increased from 1 to 6. Chapter 600. The Holy Pillar was the backbone of the entire demon world's will. The scepter in Demon Saint's hand was formed from the Holy Pillar, and the will of a world was formed from at least 10 heavenly Tao. So even if Demon Saint hadn't reached venerated immortal level, as long as it had the power of the demon world's will, it wouldn't necessarily be weaker than Jin Yuan. Loopy Toad had already deduced this from the very beginning, but it had never expected Demon Saint to so decisively borrow the power of the Holy Pillar to drive the will of the demon world. Loopy Toad had a vague feeling that something wasn't right. This was a arm wrestling show, and the stars were Jin Yuan and Demon Saint, but Loopy Toad realized that it was the real test. With the addition of the power of 6 heavenly Tao, Demon Saint's power to wither increased once again. This time, it wasn't just vegetation that was affected, other living creatures were also affected, and some demon beasts with low realms had already fainted from this fluctuation. The demon kings of the various tribes felt as if their throats had been choked by fishbones, and even their breathing became rapid. This power was so terrifying that the expressions of the four demon gods changed. Although they didn't feel as if their throats had been choked by fish bones like the demon kings, they still felt as if a heavy burden had been placed on their shoulders. It was really too heavy. Was this demon saint's power? The demon gods of the four territories stared at the sky. Even heaven and earth were stained with a thick layer of ink. Under the influence of demon saint's power, all living things were withering. Jinyuan frowned but wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he closed his eyes and felt the pressure of this will. He had never fought Demon Saint before, and this was a rare and precious experience for Jinyuan. He had to admit that Demon Saint was indeed very powerful. But Jinyuan felt that this level of shock was still far from enough compared to what Senior Dog had done on Drought Star back then. Similarly, whoever had a stronger will would be the victor. Loopy Toad had thought that Jinyuan would ask it for help, but he didn't. It saw Immortal Jinyuan hovering in the sky. The next moment, he opened his eyes, and his maple-red Taoist robes fluttered in the absence of any wind. In that moment, the Dharma image behind him began to multiply and emit an even more devastating light than before. Demon Saint's power to wither had been suppressed. You added 6? Looking at Demon Saint's virtual body, Jinyuan narrowed his eyes and smiled. I've also added 6, and they're the type that doesn't bring in external help. The number of heavenly Tao you have isn't normal. Demon Saint stared closely at Jinyuan. In fact, even Loopy Toad was startled. In its memory, Jinyuan didn't have this many heavenly Tao. The last time on Drought Star, it remembered that Little Master Ling had sensed that Jinyuan only had 3 heavenly Tao. How long had it been? Why did he suddenly have so many more? The heavenly Tao isn't laying eggs. It's not something that can be born at will. This is all thanks to Senior Dog, Jinyuan replied. Loopy Toad? Jinyuan, after Senior Dog left the last time, I repaired Drought Star on my own. However, I never expected that repairing the planet would cause Drought Star to develop feelings for me and allow me to obtain Drought Star's planet consciousness. Loopy Toad, Demon Saint, all the demons, there was such a thing? The virtual body of the Demon Saint asked, Did you find this planet by yourself? Jinyuan nodded. That's right. I once roamed the Milky Way for 1,000 years, and in the end, I found Drought Star less than 1/10 of the way outside the Milky Way. This must be fate. I didn't think that Drought Star and I would get our marriage certificate so soon. Demon Saint, get married? Jinyuan, this is a popular saying in the modern cultivation world. It means that you have obtained the approval of some kind of will. Loopy Toad and all the demons, what F*** king marriage certificate? For a very long time, Demon Saint was silent and speechless. Because there were times when it was really painful to admit the gap between people. Although he had been forced to inherit second-generation Demon Saint back then, it had taken him nearly 1,000 years to obtain the Holy Pillar's full approval. How much suffering and how many tears had he shed? It was like drawing a gold card in a game. After filling up his wallet and drawing 10 times in a row, he didn't get a single gold card. This was simply a scam. So compared with Immortal Jinyuan, who had used the system's free lottery draw to draw a gold card, Demon Saint felt like an unlucky kid who couldn't become stronger even after spending money. Now that Demon Saint thought of this, his heart instantly felt stifled. For a brief moment, the will to wither disappeared. Second-generation Demon Saint knelt at the top of the Holy Pillar with an extremely resentful expression. Sage Master was alarmed. Second generation. You have to pull yourself together, second generation. Demon Saint's power to wither had disappeared? Jinyuan looked at the sky strangely. Unfortunately, Demon Saint's virtual body was too indistinct and he couldn't see its expression at all, nor did he know what on earth had happened. What's going on? The demons below were puzzled. It probably paused midway. Demon Saint's virtual body is still there and hasn't directly disappeared. The battle isn't over yet, said Ghost Emperor. Loopy Toad was just about to ask about Drought Star's will, when Jinyuan turned to look at it and smiled. Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from Senior Dog's eyes. Loopy Toad? Senior said that you could tell from the beginning that I had already inherited Drought Star's will, right? Otherwise, Senior Dog wouldn't have trusted me so much and sent me to fight Demon Saint. I deliberately hid it from Senior Dog before, but I never expected it to be so powerful. Loopy Toad was silent. The problem was that this really didn't have anything to do with it. Apart from Jinyuan's own luck, it had more to do with his talent to be able to inherit the will of a planet. It was too rare to gain the recognition of a planet's will. The difficulty level was very high. Thus, Loopy Toad felt extremely ashamed in its heart. This was indeed a man to be envious of. Roughly 2 minutes later, Demon Saint's power to wither, which was mixed with 7 heavenly Tao, revived once again. Cough cough. I'm very sorry. Second-generation Demon Saint's virtual body said slowly, I was too curious just now, so I did a little research on the will of a planet. Jinyuan couldn't help laughing. I didn't expect Demon Saint to be such a studious person. Second-generation Demon Saint. There's always been very little information on inheriting a planet's will, but Your Excellency was able to move the planet by repairing it and gaining its recognition. This is indeed the first time I've heard of this method. I was just lucky. Maybe Demon Saint can give it a try. Immortal Jinyuan said modestly as he looked at Demon Saint's virtual body. Now, can we continue arm wrestling? To everyone's surprise, Demon Saint actually refused. No, let's both stop, Jinyuan. Since Your Excellency has already inherited the will of a planet, there's no point in continuing arm wrestling. Demon Saint's virtual body said, if Your Excellency doesn't mind, I'd like to invite Your Excellency and Senior Dog to my Demon Saint's holy palace on the Holy Pillar. We can discuss some issues together. Jinyuan, is it related to repairing the planet? No, it's just some issues related to cultivation. Second-generation Demon Saint waved his hand and said, I'm not good at repairing planets, but when it comes to repairing, I was actually best at repairing cars when I was younger. There are cars with big headlights, and there are cars with small headlights. There are cars with soft horns, and there are cars with loud horns. I've repaired all kinds of cars. Sports cars, trucks, tanks, aircraft carriers. If Your Excellency is interested in repairing cars, we can discuss it together. Chapter 601. Preface. This chapter was written on May 7, 2018, on the way to Guyuan in the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region for a gathering of writers from the Volunteer Literature Network of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan were dazed when they heard this indecent conversation from Demon Saint's virtual body telepathically. Could it be that this guy was also indecent? Loopy Toad did its best to keep calm. Demon Saint's tall and mysterious image had been completely destroyed in its mind. Loopy Toad remembered that when it was very young, it had idolized second-generation Demon Saint for a time, and had collected a lot of different figurines of him in the clan. No one had ever seen Demon Saint's true appearance, so these figurines were all different. They had all been made by master figurines in the demon world. Loopy Toad still remembered that some of them were rare collectibles. They had been sculpted by the famous figurine master Artoria using the Sword of Victory. Second-generation Demon Saint continued telepathically through the virtual body. I've already ordered Sage Master to prepare a banquet. Both of you can rest assured that this isn't a Hongmen banquet. Thanks to Senior Dog and Immortal Jinyuan's help this time, the turmoil in the 4 inner territories was quelled, and the 4 demon gods were united against a common enemy. I actually can't thank you enough. Jinyuan laughed in his heart. You could actually tell that it was an act? If I couldn't even tell that, I could directly retire. When Demon Saint retires, he has a lot of pension funds. Second-generation Demon Saint said meaningfully, if Immortal Jinyuan had really made a move, we wouldn't have used the power of our individual willpower to arm wrestle just now. If we had really fought, the entire demon world would have been destroyed. Also, Senior Dog hasn't made a move from beginning to end, presumably because of the bigger picture. You're quite honest. Immortal Jinyuan nodded. If Senior Dog had made a move, you would have died with a casual level 12 spell. Loopy Toad, so, this only highlights the need for our discussion. I hope both Senior Dog and Immortal Jinyuan can come. This isn't just a matter of life and death for the demon world, it also has a lot to do with the human cultivation world. Second-generation demon Saint smiled bitterly and said telepathically, actually, Senior Dog and Immortal should have already sensed that the human cultivation world is going to be plunged into a catastrophe. The fact that Immortal didn't hesitate to spend 1,000 years looking for Drought Star is the best evidence. Saying this, Immortal Jinyuan's expression turned serious. What do you know? Second-generation demon Saint kept them in suspense. I'll have to wait for Senior Dog and the Immortal to come to the Holy Palace to explain this in detail. Loopy Toad hadn't expected Demon Saint to actually invite it to Demon Saint's Holy Palace. In the past, this was a place that Buttface didn't even dare to think about. He didn't have any chance to set foot in it. Maybe it would be a good idea to visit it? Furthermore, Loopy Toad was also very curious about Demon Saint's succession pattern. Maybe it could get some clues through this exchange. After a moment of silence, Loopy Toad nodded. We can go take a look. Jinyun, since Senior Dog has already decided, of course I'll keep you company. Second-generation Demon Saint was overjoyed. Then I'll await your arrival. However, I need to make one thing clear. Due to the restriction of the Holy Pillar's power, I am unable to personally welcome the two of you. I need Senior Dog and the Immortal to go to the bottom of the Holy Pillar together. When the time comes, there will be a Saint Master from the Holy Palace to receive you. Jinyuan was startled. Don't you have an immortal ladder? So low? There's only stairs. Furthermore, the last person who used stairs to reach the top took 300 years. It was really too tragic. Furthermore, he didn't have any supplies in between. He climbed until he was exhausted and almost died inside. As he said this, Jinyun thought that second-generation Demon Saint sounded like he was about to cry. Jinyun, why is Demon Saint so clear about this? Second-generation Demon Saint, because that person was me. After Demon Saint said this, the air was quiet again as he withdrew his virtual body and the power of withering. All the demons present were stunned. The duel had actually ended just like that, and it seemed to be a draw? Let's go. Loopy Toad was silent for a moment before it spoke to Jinyu. Very well, Senior. Jinyuan nodded in agreement and immediately withdrew his Dharma image. The dazzling golden light immediately dissipated along with the Dharma image. After that, Immortal Jinyuan flicked his finger, and the heroic spirit throne changed. After receiving instructions, some of the heroic spirits in front of Loopy Toad started to rearrange themselves, and a long staircase actually extended from the top all the way to the ground. Jinyuan smiled slightly, revealing his canine teeth. Senior Dog, this way. Loopy Toad. Above the Holy Pillar, second-generation Demon Saint heaved a long sigh. Sage Master stared at him. I never thought that human cultivators would be willing to cooperate with our demon world. The misunderstanding between the human world and the demon world over the years has been too deep. Second-generation Demon Saint nodded. I originally thought that this was a dead end. But after exchanging blows just now, I realized that Immortal Jinyun is very strong, plus that Senior Dog, whose realm is unfathomable, and its mysterious owner. If we can join hands, we can revive this dead end. The demon world isn't like Earth, the demon star is in the Milky Way. Relying on the gate between worlds to link the human and demon worlds, I actually thought that the human world and the demon world might be able to develop peacefully, but I never expected it to come to this point today. Having said that, second-generation Demon Saint had also seen how Loopy Toad and Immortal Jinyuan had helped to bring the 4 territories together today. On this point alone, he felt that the relationship between the human world and the demon world hadn't reached an irreparable point. So as long as they were willing to work together, they would definitely be able to overcome this difficulty. Demon Saint continued, although the monster that fell out of the space fissure was just a corpse, if it had been alive, I definitely wouldn't have been able to deal with it on my own. If the strong of our 2 worlds join hands, there's still a chance. Sage Master sighed. It seems that you already have a plan, then I have nothing to say. But I never thought that you would actually have the leisure to worry about world affairs. Although I can't wait for third-generation Demon Saint to appear as soon as possible, I have to at least accomplish something that will be recorded in the history of the demon world during my term of office. How does the saying go? How do you become a successful demon? Second-generation Demon Saint thought for a bit before saying, 5 years without turning into a box, 10 years patrolling the mountains like a small drill, 100 years at the peak of a demon's life, even if you aren't a demon god king. Living an ignoble life for 1,000 years without going to the wall, leaving behind merits and fame. If one day I die of old age, my portrait will still be hung on the wall, and 10,000 demons will line up to offer incense. Good poem, Sage Master was startled. I never thought you would have this kind of talent. Before I became Demon Saint back then, I was just an allegro singer. Second-generation Demon Saint sighed. If it wasn't for my good luck, I probably wouldn't even be a small drill now. So at least during my term of office, I want to make big news. And then retire. Chapter 602. Preface. This chapter was written on the way to visit the Fudan University Volunteer Postgraduate Teaching Team at Wangmin Middle School in Shiji County, Guyuan City. The Holy Pillar was located in the center of the 4 territories. When Loopy Toad asked Elder One to lead the way, the demon gods of the 4 territories were blank. In fact, they all had the vague feeling that this senior dog might have an unusual relationship with Elder One. It was just that no one dared ask. Why do I feel that you're so reluctant? Jinyuan folded his arms and stared at the 4 demon gods. No, it's just that. The instant his gaze fell on them, the 4 demon gods felt a chill run down their spines. This was a human cultivator who could rival Demon Saint. It would be effortless for him to wipe them out if he wanted to. Furthermore, Demon Saint had now kindly invited them to the Holy Palace above the Holy Pillar. This wasn't treatment that ordinary human cultivators could enjoy. After all, even they had never been to the Holy Palace above the Holy Pillar. Back when second-generation Demon Saint had appointed him as a demon god, all the legacies had been carried out at the foot of the Holy Pillar, and no one had ever gone up. Among the demon gods of past generations, the only one who had climbed the Holy Pillar to see the Holy Palace with his own eyes was Chief Jiang of the first generation of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan. So when Loopy Toad personally asked Elder One to lead the way, the demon gods of the 4 territories were pondering this. They wondered if this action had something to do with the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan where Elder One was. After all, this senior dog's strength was even more unfathomable than Immortal Jinyuan's. Such a mysterious senior dog's every move and every word might have a hidden meaning. For the demon gods of the 4 territories who had been constantly trying to figure out the meaning of Demon Saint's edict all these years, it could be said that they were especially sensitive to the decisions and words of this great senior. Ghost Emperor of the South smiled. It's like this, Senior Dog, Senior Jinyuan, under normal circumstances, only the demon gods of the 4 territories are qualified to approach the foot of the Holy Pillar. Anyone below that, whether it's a territory envoys or demon kings, can't get close, unless they're the joint ambassadors of the 4 territories. Can't you demon gods of the 4 territories just make the decision? Jinyuan, also, can you not smile when you speak? When you smile, you look like you're crying. Ghost Emperor. Hearing Immortal Jinyuan's words, Elder One was overwhelmed by the favor. The 4 territories joint ambassador requires the demons of the 4 territories to vote publicly online. There has never been a case where a demon god has personally appointed someone. The 4 realms demon gods hurriedly nodded like chicks pecking at rice. If I say so, then so be it. At that moment, Loopy Toad said, if anyone dares to object, come out and fight. All the demons instinctively took a step back. The Yao gods of the 4 regions spoke in unison. Next, we will make an official announcement. Elder One of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan will serve as the Joint Secretary General of the 4 territories Peace Consulate. Elder One, all the demons. Watching Elder One lead Senior Dog and Immortal Jinyuan away in the direction of the Holy Pillar, the demon gods of the 4 territories all felt relieved. They had more or less looked down on human cultivators before, but Jinyuan had taught them a lesson this time. When a truly powerful human cultivator stood in front of them, they felt like they had to consider every breath they took. And the most important thing was that this was the demon world. In a situation where there was no spirit chi at all, he was actually this strong. If there was a more suitable environment for him to display his skills, he would definitely be even more terrifying. The demon gods of the 4 territories communicated telepathically with each other. I wonder why Demon Saint has invited this senior dog and senior immortal Jinyu. Demon Saint actually prepared a banquet? This probably isn't a simple matter. But with such a strong human cultivator and this mysterious senior dog, it would be best if they could be friends with the demon world. It would be too scary if they were enemies. Ghost Emperor said. By the way, is it really okay for us to directly appoint Elder Wen? Turtle Demon asked. It's no use having an opinion. Although this is unprecedented, it doesn't mean it can't be. And Elder Wen deserves this special honor. At that moment, Scorpion King slowly said telepathically, if Elder Wen hadn't convinced me this time, I wouldn't have come at all. In fact, I've always suspected that this senior dog was deliberately stalling for time before Elder Wen and I arrived. Scorpion King, are you saying that this senior dog has already set everything up for the purpose of bringing our 4 territories back to friendly terms? It's possible. The Yao gods of the 4 regions recalled everything that had happened before and felt a sense of dread when they thought about it. Was this the style of an expert? Controlling all the arrangements in the palm of his hand? As expected of senior dog. Previously, the demon gods of the 4 territories had actually wondered if senior dog wasn't that powerful, but now it seemed that they had no right to doubt it at all. Well, Your Excellency demon gods, let me interrupt. At that moment, Ghost Emperor's territory envoy, Taoist Witch Demon, suddenly spoke. Ghost Emperor, what is it? According to the comprehensive information received by the other territory envoys, the official mailboxes of the 4 territories have just received a lot of complaints and reports from the flower clans and tree clans. Currently, there are hundreds of thousands of them. Reports? Taoist Witch Demon nodded. Because Lord Demon Saint and Immortal Jinyuan were wrestling earlier, the power of withering and the power of recovery shifted back and forth, causing the plant system demons to be implicated. The 4 demon gods, clan leader Lu Qi of the Forest Fairy clan said that after he felt himself withering, he thought his lifespan was over, so he lay down in a coffin that had been prepared beforehand. In the end, who knew that the power of recovery would descend and pull at the power of withering? And then the whole clan watched as clan leader Lu Qi sat up in the coffin. Also, apart from this matter, Lord Venerable Ox has to deal with the matter regarding Lord Horseface. Because he violated the Peace Consulate's rules, he was punished by Demon Saint and turned into a pile of demon sand. Horseface died too miserably. Venerable Ox's nose turned sour. Then what about his demon sand? It was still in the Peace Consulate before, but I sent a little ghost to take a look, Taoist Witch Demon said. It might have been because Lord Demon Saint and Senior Immortal Jinyuan's auras clashed so fiercely that Lord Horseface's ashes were blown away. Venerable Ox's expression was very pained. My girl. She's actually gone. The other demon gods. On the other side, with Elder Wen leading the way, 2 people and 1 dog turned into 3 streams of light as they swiftly approached the holy pillar. In the distance, Loopy Toad saw an ancient bronze pillar that seemed to prop up the sky appear on the horizon in the distance, like a sea-stabilizing divine needle. Is this the holy pillar? For some reason, Loopy Toad suddenly felt inexplicably excited as it stared at the pillar. How I want to pee on the holy pillar. Chapter 603. Today, I visited Fudan University's postgraduate teaching team at Wangmin Middle School and Sanhe Middle School. They are both young, almost the same age as me, but they have already taken on the responsibility of being teachers. Teaching in the village, the difficulties they have to overcome are much greater than we imagined. Backward key and equipment, differences in education, regional and cultural differences, differences in water and soil, they have all overcome them. This is a group of tough people. P.S. Wangmin Middle School's environment is even more backward than Sanhe Middle School. The teaching team leader, Geng Xinyu, is an English teacher, and there are two men, Li Lianshua and Yang Jianwei. Because the environment is too difficult, the three men were arranged to come here to teach. They have to fetch their own water and go down the mountain to take a bath in the city. However, the most annoying thing is that the bus down the mountain is continuous. There is a bus at 6 o'clock a.m., 6:10 a.m., and 6:15 a.m. In the afternoon, the return bus from the city is at 2 o'clock a.m. and 3 o'clock p.m. It takes 4 hours to go back and forth. Time is too tight, so we can't do much before we have to return to the school. The winding mountain road is full of twists and turns. Kuxuan didn't even eat dinner and almost vomited. It's not easy for them to make it through. Salute to the three men. Aspiration from the World, Volunteer Literature, the third song of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League. Lyrics. Kuxuan, we aspire from this world, also love to look up at the blue sky, selflessly dedicate the hot blood of youth, unwavering faith, also love to smile at tomorrow, sending the warmest wind out of the horizon, let us shoulder to shoulder waiting for a beautiful promise. How many times in this life do we have such a rare experience? Connecting each other's hearts, another year went by. Sprinkling the warmest sunshine on the world, we build our spirit together like the most beautiful sunny day. Chapter 604. Under normal circumstances, Jin Yuan would definitely have become suspicious. But the problem was that this was Senior Dog. For a dog like this who had gotten rid of vulgar tastes, there must be a reason for everything it did. Therefore, even if it was flying backward, there must be a reason for it. Besides, wasn't there a cultivator who rode a donkey in the past? In the end, that person really became an immortal. Soon, the three streaks of light approached the foot of the sacred pillar. Above the holy pillar, the clouds were indistinct, towering into the clouds and not visible. Previously, when he was far away, he could already feel the power mixed in with the demonic power. Now, it was even more obvious at such a close distance. Although he had roughly guessed what the holy pillar was, it was still just a conjecture. Most of the time, if there was no evidence to prove it. Even Jinyuan didn't dare speak so decisively. Senior Human Dog was still here. If he said the wrong thing, he would lose a lot of face. Jinyuan stared at Dog 2 with an unreadable expression in his eyes as he tried to guess what on earth Dog 2 was trying to say. For a senior of Senior Dog's realm, every action must have its own reasoning. Perhaps there was a heavenly Tao contained within it? Jinyuan cupped his chin in his hand, his eyes deep in thought. Could it be that the real reason Senior Dog was flying backward was some kind of hint? Is it related to the holy pillar? What does Senior Dog know? But it wasn't good for Jin Yuan to ask about it openly. Most of the time, he still needed to understand it for himself, so he kept it to himself. A man and a dog, along with Elder Wen, waited at the foot of the holy pillar. Not long after, a majestic demonic power surged from the top of the holy pillar. Buttface looked up and saw an old man in a white Taoist robe descending from the sky with his hands clasped behind his back. This old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He had a pair of antlers on his head, but they were of different colors. One was gold and the other was silver. Elderwin had never seen this old man before. But based on his aura alone, Elderwin could guess this person's identity. This must be the legendary Saint Master who was in charge of Demon Saints' holy palace and assisted generations of demon saints. It was rumored that sacred experts' comprehensive fighting strength wasn't that great, but their perception abilities were extremely heaven-defying. Furthermore, their lifespans were very long. The demon saint of the demon realm had already been passed down to the second generation. However, from start to finish, there was only one sacred expert. Greetings, sacred teacher. Elderwin bowed respectfully and was about to kneel down when the sacred master stepped forward and helped him up. He stroked his beard and said, "The joint secretaries of the 4 inner domains can dispense with the formalities." Elderwin, you don't have to be so polite. Elderwin was flattered. Although this was Elderwin's first time serving as the Secretary General, he was familiar with the position requirements and related regulations of the 4 inner domain joint secretariats. There's such a rule? Elderwin had a shocked expression on his face. I haven't studied much, Lord Sage Teacher, please don't frame me, the Sage Master laughed in spite of himself. It's true. On your way here, I've just established this rule with the demonic sage. It won't be long before we announce it to the entire realm. Elderwin. There's actually such a thing. Loopy Toad and Jinyan were also stunned in their hearts. Directly establishing a new rule was actually possible. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the significance of this new rule. In front of Yao Saint and Sage Master, all the demons in the Yao realm had to prostrate and kowtow when they saw them. But this rule gave Elderwin a special privilege. This meant that in some sense, Elderwin's current status was almost on equal footing with the demon gods of the 4 inner domains. And this profound meaning, Elderwin himself could naturally think of it. That was why he was so panicked. That's right, there's also this. This is a gift from Demon Saint. Suddenly, the Sage Master waved his hand, and a light flew out of his sleeve and landed in Elderwin's hand. This was a token that looked like it was made of jade. After Elderwin saw the words on the token clearly, his eyes widened like 2 copper bells. This is Demon Saint's token. Dog too recognized it at a glance. Generally speaking, only the demon gods of the 4 territories had this kind of treatment. Furthermore, the demon gods of the 4 territories only had 1 token, which was stored in the central bank of the demon world. This was a necessity for those who went to the foot of the Holy Pillar to seek an audience with Demon Saint and Sage Master. Furthermore, the token also contained a portion of the Holy Pillar's power, which could protect the holder against the immense pressure exerted by the Holy Pillar. Elderwin's realm was relatively low to begin with. When he had approached the Holy Pillar earlier, he had felt a strong sense of pressure, and even his breathing had been blocked. Now that he held the token in his hand, he instantly felt the pressure being released from his body, and he felt refreshed. Lord Sage, this gift is too generous. Elderwin was already incoherent. The significance of this token was too great. If the new demon world law from before had only been a hint, then this token was completely explicit. Elderwin was very anxious, but Loopy Toad was overjoyed and praised this 2nd-generation demon god in its heart for being a pretty good demon. With this token, Elderwin's status in the demon world would rise a lot, and with it, the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan status as a whole would also rise. In the future, if anyone wanted to make a move against the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan, they would have to think twice about the weight of Elderwin, the Secretary General. Elderwin's hands trembled as he held the token. This was the so-called, when a demon achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to heaven. Loopy Toad was sincerely happy. Now, it could indeed let go of the past. With this Demon Saint token in hand, given Elderwin's wisdom and strategy, as well as his grandson Wen Yu's outstanding management talent, he would definitely be able to lead the Toad clan to a whole new level. This is what you deserve, just accept it. Sage Master's tone left no room for refusal, and Elderwin could only accept the order. In just a few short hours, the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan had still been suffering from slander and had been forced to migrate. Now, they had actually received Demon Saint's favor. All of this was like a dream to Elderwin. Of course, Elderwin wasn't stupid. He could see that all of this had something to do with this Greenford Senior Dog. There were too many suspicious points. From the moment Senior Dog had appeared, the originally anxious situation had instantly changed. Had this Senior Dog already foreseen this? That shouldn't be the case. They hadn't known each other at all before? Or could it be, this Senior Dog was, at that moment, Elderwin suddenly remembered the Toad clan's unique swallowing and spitting spell, which Senior Dog had used earlier, and he instantly had a bold idea. Chapter 605. In the past few days, I've learned a lot from the Ningxia literature collection. I'd like to thank the leaders of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League for their hard work in leading the team. I'd also like to thank the Yuewen Group for providing us with this rare opportunity to collect poems. For this collection, I've composed a total of 5 volunteer literature lyrics. The last one, Annals of Ningxia, is an ancient-style lyric. It will be the closing song for the Yuewen Group's Ningxia Literature Collection Group to say goodbye to Ningxia. The lyrics mention the teaching teams from various universities, the community social workers, the university students who return to their hometown to rebuild their hometown, the charity restaurant of love, and so on. Due to the lack of time, we didn't have the time to visit many of the volunteers who were quietly contributing their strength in this world. We only used this song, Annals of Ningxia, to express our deepest respect for this web novelist trip. The first 4 lyrics submitted are, To Live, Nameless Hero, Be Yourself, and Aspire to the World. If any of them is selected and wins an award, Ku Xian will immediately produce the song. Annals of Ningxia, the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League's Volunteer Literature Essay Contest for Ancient-Style Lyrics, Yuewen Group's Ningxia Literature Collection Group Lyrics, Ku Xian Main Song. That year I left my hometown to teach at the foot of the mountain in the border village. White clouds, green mountains, and blue waters. A cup of tea. The long lamp in the room is still lit, and the sound of reading and revising books and rolling gauze. My son's smile sprouts on his face. That year I returned home, thick soil accompanied by wind and frost like a painting. Some people return to the old land under the stars and the moon. The power of green. Time is like the mountain, and life is like summer flowers. I hope the aspiring young man can show off his youth. There are many stories in this small town, just like the Jianghu then gathers righteous guests to spread kindness all over the world. Chorus. 10 years of reincarnation writes the aspiration extends in all directions. In coming year the hometown spreads the tales, and the world is full of peaches and plums. Engrave the memory, and turn this love into fireworks. Chapter 606. Loopy Toad hadn't expected Elder Wen to actually make up stories like this. It instantly didn't know how to reply. Given the current situation, it was definitely impossible for them to acknowledge each other. Otherwise, Elder Wen would continue to be embarrassed. So instead of that, it would be better to let Elder Wen continue to misunderstand. After thinking for a bit, Loopy Toad fabricated a reason that could explain itself. It stared at Elder Wen and pretended to muse. It's my disciple. Elder Wen turned pale with fright when he heard this reason. Seeing that Elder Wen had been fooled, Dog 2 continued to fabricate nonsense. Your king really isn't dead. He's the most heroic and handsome disciple I've ever seen. Elder Wen's mouth dropped open. He had never expected this senior dog to speak so highly of the 10th generation. However, its body was indeed destroyed. He's still in the process of reconstructing it. Previously, he sensed in his prophetic dream that the sky-swallowing toad clan was about to suffer a calamity, and he tried to escape me several times to come back here. Elder Wen's heart ached and his eyes turned red. It turned out that he had misunderstood the 10th generation. This old official was wrong to actually say such treasonous things to the 10th generation. Elder Wen lowered his head and sighed as he looked at Loopy Toad. Then may I ask, Senior Dog? I came here on my own, and I didn't tell him, said Loopy Toad. Then why did you come, Senior Dog? There's no reason for Senior Dog to personally take action for us. Indeed, I didn't do anything. The sound isolation spell was transparent, and Loopy Toad turned its gaze to Jinyuan, who was standing outside the spell. Elder Wen, as for why I came, I'll give you a poem, Loopy Toad said. Loopy Toad said, I mean, when I have nothing to do, when I'm bored, when I want to, I go to a different place. Come here, you can take a look. A different place, a lot. Elder Wen. At the end of their conversation, Loopy Toad left the soundproof spell barrier, although it didn't acknowledge Elder Wen in the end. In the end, it didn't acknowledge Elder Wen, but Dog 2 felt that this might actually be a good ending. Senior Dog, is the conversation over? Sage Master Deerhorn stared at Loopy Toad and bowed. He looked at Elder Wen, who was sitting cross-legged not far away, pondering the meaning of the poem, and raised his eyebrows meaningfully. Then shall we go now? Sage Master asked. Loopy Toad nodded. Jinyuan, how do we get there? The sacred sovereign smiled. If an ordinary person wants to meet the demonic sage, they have to climb the sacred stairs inside the sacred pillar. Of course, there is a second way, and that is for me to personally come down and pick you up. Not demon saint? Zhen Yuan asked. Once you're chosen as a demon saint, you're not allowed to leave the peak of the holy pillar without permission. You can only move around the demon saint's holy palace. So miserable, Zhen Yuan and Loopy Toad broke out in a sweat. Loopy Toad now finally understood why so few of the demon gods and demon kings in the demon world had ever seen demon saint's true face. It turned out that demon saint simply couldn't come down. Now that it knew the truth, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that demon saint was a little pitiful. He wondered if the demon gods of the demon realm would give up searching for a way to become a demon saint if they knew that they would lose their freedom after becoming a demon saint. Sometimes, the meaning of freedom was greater than anything else. No matter how powerful one was, they would lose their freedom. Anyone would think carefully before making such a choice. No matter how good-looking you are, you're the only one in the world. What's the use? That's right, what's your name? Zhen Yuan looked at the deer-horned sacred sovereign. I'm Shen Wuiyue. Seniors can also call me Little Shen. The deer-horned sacred sovereign said, then let's set off now. Teleporting directly to the top of the sacred pillar requires a magic artifact, but only I can use it. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan wanted to ask what the magic artifact was, but before they could say anything, they saw the deer-horned sacred sovereign pluck out his own antlers. Loopy Toad, Zhen Yuan, is this fake? Holding the golden antlers in one hand and the silver antlers in the other, Shen Wuiyue shook his head with a smile on his face. No, this is real. Then, Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan heard a crisp, piu sound, and blood sprayed out like a fountain from where the antlers had been plucked. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan, this was quite a lot of blood. This reminded Dog 2 of a movie called Kill Bill. Shen Wuiyue then merged the golden and silver antlers together. The moment the two antlers came together, a dazzling light was released to form a teleportation magic ring in front of Shen Wuiyue. Shen Wuiyue tossed the antlers aside and made an inviting gesture at the magic ring. Seniors, please come in. Zhen Yuan was startled when he saw the antlers that had been tossed aside. You don't want your antlers anymore? Teleporting to the top of the sacred pillar requires a lot of magic energy, so I usually store my demon energy in the antlers beforehand. Usually, I'll use the teleportation magic once and that's the limit. Blood spurted out of Shen Wuiyue's head as he smiled. But it's fine. In any case, the antlers will grow back the next day. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan, Shen Wuiyue, this old man was a little strange, Shen Wuiyue. It's just that before it grows back, it'll keep bleeding and it won't stop. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan were stunned. Are you sure you won't die? After entering the teleportation magic circle, Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan very quickly arrived at the top of the sacred pillar. Throughout the entire process, Loopy Toad completely avoided eye contact with the sacred pillar, otherwise it would find that it couldn't suppress the primordial power in its crotch at all. When Dog 2 appeared at the top of the sacred pillar, the strange feeling of wanting to pee disappeared. Dog 2 looked at the place it had once fantasized about setting foot in one day, but was a little disappointed in the end. That was because the top of the sacred pillar was really too small. It was a circular square that could be seen as far as the eye could see. Demon Saint's holy palace was in the middle of the square and looked unremarkable, like an old church. The glass on all sides was colored glass, which gave off a colorful light. It could be said that whether it was the top of the sacred pillar or Demon Saint's holy palace, both were very different from what Loopy Toad had imagined. Furthermore, in this sesame-sized square, Demon Saint actually had restrictions on its freedom. Loopy Toad instantly felt that being Demon Saint was a pretty miserable thing. It was said that Demon Saint's power was inherited, and it didn't matter how bad one's talent was as long as one was chosen. But now that it saw the disparity in reality, Loopy Toad felt that it would rather not have this kind of power, basking in the sun in the courtyard, going out to buy groceries with Mother Wang, swindling some money from Little Silver, acting cute with Little Master Ling. When it had nothing to do, it could also lift Sheep's skirt and tease Jinka in passing. How interesting was that? Chapter 607. How is it? The top of the holy pillar isn't as vast as you think, right? Shen Wuyue walked over from behind. His head was still bleeding profusely, and it didn't look like it was going to stop at all. Zhen Yuan raised his eyebrows. Is Lord Shen sure you don't need to stop the bleeding? As I said before, I'll keep bleeding until the antlers grow back. It's no use whether I block it or apply medicine. Shen Wuyue smiled. Senior Immortal Zhen Yuan, you don't have to worry too much about me. My self-healing ability is also very strong. Losing blood while making blood is actually the same as exchanging blood. I think it's pretty healthy. Zhen Loopy Toad, what if *** King healthy? Loopy Toad looked around in disappointment and deliberately put on an old-fashioned expression. I never thought the Grand Demon Saint would actually have such a small space. This is a rule set by first-generation Demon Saint. Everyone sleeps in a bed and dies in a box. There's no need for such a large space at all. First-generation Demon Saint was more concerned about the proper use of space, Shen Wuyue replied. Shen Wuyue answered. Blood had already flowed down his white robe, gradually soaking it and turning it from white to red. Doesn't the successor Demon Saint have the right to change it? The former Demon Saint's rules can only last for 2 generations at most. If second-generation Demon Saint sets any rules now, the third and fourth generations don't have the right to change them. Only the 5th-generation Demon Saint has the right, Shen Wuyue answered. I see. Dog 2 nodded. At that moment, its and Zhen Yuan's expressions changed slightly as they sensed that someone was coming. A very powerful aura came out of Demon Saint's holy palace in front of them. It was a blue-skinned humanoid demon, also known as a transvestite. This transvestite held a scepter in his hand, and the fish scales on his azure skin glowed brilliantly. Just from this aura, Dog 2 and Zhen Yuan had already guessed who this person was. As expected of second-generation Demon Saint, your aura is indeed much more powerful than your virtual body. Immortal Zhen Yuan smiled slightly. Of course, this was just a polite remark. In his mind, the strongest person would always be his senior dog. Likewise, second-generation Demon Saint curled the corners of his mouth, then stepped aside to make way for them. Seniors, welcome to the Holy Palace. This was Loopy Toad's first time seeing Demon Saint, and to be honest, this image was really too different from what it had imagined. Not only did he have blue skin, he also had scales on his body. So second-generation Demon Saint's original form was a tropical ornamental fish? Seeing that senior dog was in a daze, Zhen Yuan asked with great concern, What's wrong, senior dog? I'm fine. Dog 2 shook its head and said in a low voice, I was just wondering why the second-generation Demon Saint's color was so strange. Zhen Yuan, second-generation Demon Saint and Sage Master Shen Wuyue were startled. A dog with such a strange color actually had the nerve to talk about others. Just as Buttface had expected, the Demon Saint's holy palace didn't use any spells that could expand space, perfectly implementing the first Demon Saint's concept of space. The banquet had already been set up in the holy palace, which wasn't too big. After everyone took their seats, Dog 2 saw 2 girls in maid outfits walk out from behind the curtains of the main hall of the Holy Palace. Zhen Yuan's eyes lit up. You have other people here? They're just puppets made from demon earth and don't have their own consciousness. Although the Holy Palace is small, we still need some people to order around. Shen Wuyue smiled. There are 10 puppets like this in the Holy Palace, and they're all very exquisite. They were all personally made by second-generation Demon Saint, and there are all kinds of them. Mature women, lawless, mature women, young married women. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan, second-generation Demon Saint. Before I became Demon Saint, I actually made puppets for a living. Shen Wuyue was blank. Don't you sing Allegro? Second-generation Demon Saint. That's what I did before I made puppets. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan. Just from this simple conversation, Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan could already guess that this sage master Shen Wuyue definitely liked to tear down second-generation Demon Saint stage. This inevitably made Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan sympathize with second-generation Demon Saint even more. In the end, before their sympathy was over, Shen Wuyue started to tear down the stage again. Seniors, I have something very interesting to tell you. Shen Wei looked at Loopy Toad and Jinyun with a comical expression. Second-generation Demon Saint was so excited when he made them back then. Loopy Toad and Jinyun. At that moment, Loopy Toad turned its gaze to second-generation Demon Saint. For some reason, it felt that there was something wrong with second-generation Demon Saint's expression, as if he was very sad. Jinyun, what's wrong with Demon Saint? Nothing. Shen Wei shook his head. Maybe he's lost in the pain of making puppets back then. Didn't you say that Demon Saint was very excited? Jinyun thought it was very strange. He was very excited before, but when second-generation Demon Saint realized that these puppets were cold from head to toe after they were formed, he couldn't get excited at all. Loopy Toad and Jinyun. When they heard the word cold, Loopy Toad and Jinyun's sympathy for Demon Saint was almost full. As a Demon Saint, first of all, his freedom was restricted by the Holy Pillar's restriction, and then he was trapped by first-generation space restriction rule. As a result, Demon Saint's Holy Pillar didn't have the slightest bit of grandeur from the square to the Holy Palace. In the end, the Sage Master next to him had to tear him down every day. Loopy Toad felt that the most pitiful thing was still the puppets. Judging from the finesse of these puppets made from Demon Earth, whether it was their facial features or each strand of hair or even each part that should be plump, second-generation Demon Saint had obviously carried out very precise arrangements and calculations in order to make these puppets look realistic enough. As a Demon Saint who had already lost his freedom and grandeur, it actually wasn't so bad to have so many puppets to keep him company. But in the end, second-generation Demon Saint had no choice but to admit a tragic fact, and that was that after these puppets were enlightened, they were cold. They couldn't be used at all. I've already taken off my pants, and this is what you show me. At this thought, whether it was Loopy Toad or Jinyun, they already felt sympathy for Demon Saint. Chapter 608. Loopy Toad had always thought that Demon Saint was a weirdo, but it had never expected Shen Wei, this old man, to be even weirder. Logically speaking, there was no freedom or space here, and his assistant officer could come and undermine him at any time. Loopy Toad felt that it would go crazy if it stayed here any longer, not to mention the restrictions of the Holy Pillar. The Demon Saint that was trapped here. Seniors, please sit down. Unlike second-generation Demon Saint's expression, Shen Wei smiled like an idiot, and his grin was even more brilliant than a lotus flower. Blood continued to gush out of his head. Then Shen Wei waved his hand. Hey! Same rules, Thunder Mother and Ramu, bring the things over. Right after that, Loopy Toad saw two little Lolitas carrying large basins come to Shen Wei's sides and start to use them to collect the blood gushing out of Shen Wei's head. Loopy Toad, Jinyun, furthermore, these two basins weren't ordinary basins. Although Shen Wei's blood continued to pour into the basins, it didn't overflow. Shen Wei smiled. I've made quite a few basins like this to deal with situations like this. Every time I have to use a big spell, I have to remove the antlers and activate the energy stored inside. It doesn't hurt much, but it's quite troublesome. So, Senior Dog and Senior Immortal Jinyun, do you know why I'm usually unwilling to go down to receive people? Loopy Toad, Jinyun, a lot of blood was one thing, but the main thing this old man Shen Wei was that he was afraid of trouble. So under normal circumstances, if he wasn't receiving an important guest, Shen Wei absolutely wouldn't remove the antlers so easily. On the other side, the two little puppet maids were expressionless as they held the basins very easily to collect Shen Wei's blood. It was obvious that they were already very used to it. Jinyun found it very strange as he looked at Shen Wei and asked, "What do you plan to do with this blood after collecting it?" Shen Wei, "Isn't that simple? Sell it to the hot pot restaurant." Loopy Toad and Jinyun, "My blood isn't as valuable as Lord Demon Saint's, but it's still dear blood. Palpitations, insomnia, and backache can all be treated." Speaking up to here, Shen Wei said with a slightly reminiscing expression, "Actually, when the first-generation Demon Saint had just succeeded back then, the first-generation Demon Saint didn't take over. Our sacred palace is often short of funds. That's why I often sell deer blood to raise funds for our Holy Palace's activities. Of course, I was forced. Forced. Yeah. The first-generation demon saint was very Buddhist. Not only did he limit the size of the Holy Palace, but he also often helped the poor demon citizens. The taxes collected by our sacred palace were all used to build the Western region. Aren't there still plans for the Western region these days? It was proposed by the first generation. As long as one's academic results were good enough and had the standard of a postgraduate student, they could apply. Last year, we received a total of more than 2,000 demon monarchs. Zhen Yuan raised an eyebrow. Demon King? Yeah. If he wasn't a Demon King, his diploma wasn't enough. Generally, only those who had reached the Demon King realm could obtain a postgraduate diploma. Furthermore, not everyone could participate in the Western plan. There's a total of 6 rounds of interviews, which means killing a large number of Demon Kings, Shen Wuyue said. Zhen Yuan, then what are the benefits of participating in this plan? In addition to developing the demon world and contributing to it, we have an evaluation form for these demon kings who successfully go to the West to support the construction. Their tribe points can be increased based on their contribution. Shen Wuyue smiled. Although the demon race's outer territories are divided into 96 territories, they are also ranked. Every 5 years, the top 3 tribes in the outer territories will be compared with the bottom 3 tribes in the central territory, and the tribe with the strongest overall strength will be promoted to the central territory. Hearing this, Loopy Toad was suddenly enlightened. Because it hadn't been on the throne for long when it had been in the sky-swallowing Toad clan, it didn't understand this situation at all. Listening to Shen Wuyue now, it understood. It turned out that tribes could also be upgraded. Loopy Toad noticed that when Shen Wuyue said this, second-generation demon saint's expression was one of deep bitterness and hatred, as if someone owed him millions. Then, Loopy Toad heard Shen Wuyue continue, actually, His Excellency's second-generation demon saint was one of the volunteers for the construction of the Western region back then. Furthermore, he took a Didi Shunfeng demon car over and was raped on the way. Loopy Toad's and Zhen Yuan's hearts couldn't take it anymore. Wait, rape? This pervert's taste was so heavy. And then? Although second-generation demon saint was still a weak chicken at that time, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with a rapist. He directly castrated him. Back to business. There have actually always been plans for the construction of the Western region, not just in the demon world, but also in the human cultivation world. Shen Wuyue paused for a moment, then said, the reason why we're talking about the construction of the human cultivation world and the demon world is because, actually, the most important reason is related to the topic we're discussing this time. When Shen Wuyue said this, Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan knew that the real point was coming. Although blood was still spurting out of Shen Wuyue's head, his expression was completely different from before. He suddenly became serious. What I'm going to talk about next has to do with the sustainable development of the human cultivation world and the demon world. I hope seniors can listen carefully. Loopy Toad raised its eyes. Tell me about it? Shen Wuyue looked at second-generation demon saint, who then said, it's like this, senior dog, senior immortal Zhen Yu. Not long ago, Sage Master and I discovered a space fisher in the demon world. At the mention of the space fisher, Immortal Zhen Yuan's expression changed slightly, because he was in fact the one who had caused so many space fishers in the demon world all these years. Before he had created the gate between worlds, the spatial structure of the demon world had actually been very stable, and it was impossible for space fishers to appear at all. Second-generation demon saint. Seniors, you definitely know that ever since a goddamn human cultivator created the gate between worlds, the spatial structure of our demon world has been messed up. A few fissures appear every now and then. Loopy Toad and Zhen Yuan, what was the furthest distance between people? At that very moment, a goddamn person was sitting in front of you, but you didn't know it at all. Although he felt a little guilty, Zhen Yuan's acting skills weren't for show. He did his best to remain calm and didn't notice anything unusual at all. What's so special about these new space fishers? Zhen Yuan asked. That's what I want to say. Sage Master and I previously thought that they were new fissures because of fluctuations from the gate between worlds. But according to our investigation, we realized that these space fissures weren't formed because of the gate between worlds. Not because of the gate between worlds. Chapter 609. Demon Saint's title was very interesting to Jinyuan. Monster? What's that? Aren't you a monster yourself? Second-generation Demon Saint found himself unexpectedly speechless. Of course, Jinyuan was just joking. What on earth was this thing that Demon Saint of the demon world called a monster? Jinyuan was a little curious. First of all, it couldn't be an ordinary demon beast, spirit beast, or devil beast, otherwise Demon Saint wouldn't have called it a monster. At the mention of this monster, the expressions on both second-generation Demon Saint and Sage Master Shenwuyue's faces changed slightly to show lingering fear. At the same time, Dog 2's curiosity was piqued. After all, the two people standing here right now were the two most powerful existences in the demon world. One was the current Demon Saint and the other was Sage Master's assistant. If it was just an ordinary creature, it would be impossible for them to feel fear at all. Although second-generation Demon Saint wasn't the strongest Demon Saint of all time, after merging with the consciousness of the holy pillar of the demon world, his current true immortal strength could rival that of a venerated immortal. With the willpower of an entire world in hand, there were actually very few things that could make someone at Demon Saint's realm afraid. Dog 2 gazed at second-generation Demon Saint and Shenwuyue. I want to know what on earth this monster is. I'm afraid it's very difficult to explain this monster with words alone. I invited Senior Dog and Senior Immortal Jinyuan here this time in the hope that both seniors can help us take a look at what this monster is. Second-generation Demon Saint said. How? The corners of Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly, revealing his canine teeth, and he was a little curious. We already killed it. Suddenly, Jinyuan felt a little disappointed. What? How did it die just like that? Didn't you say it was a monster? At that moment, second-generation Demon Saint suddenly untied his robe to reveal his chest, which gleamed with fish scales. Dog 2's eyes were almost blinded and hurriedly covered his eyes. Second-generation Demon Saint, please reconsider, I don't have this kind of hobby. Second-generation Demon Saint, Senior, you misunderstand. Please open your eyes and look at the wound on my chest, it was caused by that monster. Ancestor Jinyuan loosened his grip and looked at second-generation Demon Saint's chest with loopy toad's eyes. Second-generation Demon Saint's chest and right shoulder actually had countless hideous teeth marks. The monster had at least a few hundred teeth. How long has this wound been there? Buttface asked curiously. It's already been half a month. The Sacred Master and I have tried everything we can, but we're still unable to heal this wound, an unrecoverable wound. Immortal Jinyuan sucked in a breath. If this was the case, then the problem was much more complicated than he had imagined. The true immortal realm was completely different from the other realms, because the true immortal realm's spiritual power had a very powerful regenerative property. In battle, as long as it was a wound on the skin, it would quickly recover. Loopy Toad was naturally aware of this. In this world there were many magic treasures or spells with the attribute of serious damage, which could prevent wounds from healing. But the point was that the person whose wound couldn't be healed was second-generation Demon Saint. Second-generation Demon Saint's current realm. Loopy Toad could only think of these two ways to inflict irreparable wounds on second-generation Demon Saint's body. Furthermore, to Loopy Toad's current limited knowledge, this was indeed the strongest method that could effectively block rapid recovery. The first method was Little Silver's spit. The other was Little Masterling's primordial chi, but it was clear that Demon Saint's wound hadn't been caused by Little Silver or Little Masterling. Loopy Toad's interest was instantly piqued. What about the monster's body? Let me take a look. It already had a guess in its heart, but didn't dare make any careless assertions. It needed to confirm it with its own eyes before it could believe it. In fact, Loopy Toad felt that Jinyuan should have also sensed it. After that, Shenwuyue clapped his hands, and two puppets with very beautiful figures but very cold bodies carefully carried a crystal tank into the main hall. This tank couldn't be considered too big. Its mouth only had a radius of 1 meter, but it weighed 10,000 tons, and it was sealed with a fairly thick membrane. Half a month ago, after second-generation Demon Saint and Shenwuyue had gotten rid of this monster, they had thrown its body into this crystal tank and sealed it. This crystal tank was first-generation Demon Saint's bathtub, and it's made of a very special material. At that time, we turned Demon Saint's holy palace upside down, but really couldn't find a magic artifact more suitable for sealing this monster's body, said Shenwuyue. Even though it had already been half a month, Shenwuyue was still a little frightened when he recalled the scene of the monster's appearance. Everyone gathered around this crystal tank, and second-generation Demon Saint began to recall what had happened half a month ago. Half a month ago, Sage Master and I discovered an abnormal space fissure. I used magic to move it into the holy temple, intending to mend it, but I never thought that a monster would actually jump out of it. How was the monster killed later? Before looking at the monster's body, Jinyuan wanted to get to the bottom of this first. At that time, I was ambushed by this monster and was already injured. Sage Master and I then joined forces, but who would have thought that this monster would be extremely tough and difficult to deal with? Second-generation Demon Saint said, in the end, Sage Master and I joined hands to pray and summon the holy pillar to forcibly kill it. Speaking up to this point, Shenwuyue also sighed. Summoning the holy pillar to forcibly kill it is actually very damaging to Lord Demon Saint's lifespan. Furthermore, each generation of Demon Saint can only use it 3 times at most. Dog 2 and Jinyuan nodded. One man and one dog had already come to a conclusion in their hearts. If this monster was really as terrifying as second-generation Demon Saint said, it should indeed attract the attention of both the demon world and the human world, since the demon planet and Earth were currently connected through the gate between worlds. Since this kind of abnormal and unknown fissure which could produce monsters could appear in the demon world, it was also possible that it could appear in the human world. Let's look at the monster first. Loopy Toad narrowed its eyes. Shenwuyue nodded and raised his hand to remove the seal around the crystal tank. Loopy Toad floated in the air and looked inside the tank with Jinyuan. Then, they saw a 1-meter-long black fish with a mouth full of sharp teeth inside the crystal tank. Is this a catfish? Loopy Toad was cursing in its heart when it heard Jinyuan exclaim, "A Kuan? What the hell? Who made a mistake in refining this multi-fanged Kuan?" Loopy Toad, second-generation Demon Saint, you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.